בשם השם נעשה ונצליח. שיעור תורה. Baruch Hashem. Thank you for having me. Everybody got food? Everybody got food? Good. Same price. So, first of all, thank you, Igal, Ashrecha v'Ashrecha Kecha, for organizing it. All these wonderful people, some new faces, Baruch Hashem, some old faces, Baruch Hashem, all the way from Connecticut and New York. Baruch Hashem, a lot of people that I see their names and faces on WhatsApp, and some people that are brand new, Baruch Hashem. So, because there are some new people, I'll tell you a little brief, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Haba. I'll tell you a little bit brief of who I am, and try to keep it. There's a very long version of my personal story, and anyone that wants to know the long version of it, there are CDs over there, and the price is $0 for anyone, and if you want two, it's also $0. So one for $0 and two for $0. But just take it and listen to it. Baruch Hashem, each package has 2 CDs. And the first track in the black CD, CD number 2, it's called From Wall Street to the Western Wall. It gives you my personal life story, why I did tshuva, why I'm here, and so on and so forth. But with that being said, I'll give you a short version of my story, so you decide along the way if I'm somebody you should listen to it or ignore me for the next 2 hours. You decide. 3 hours maybe, or 1 hour, however much you want. So also, the shiur will be for Refuah Shlema, for Felicia Bat Carolina, Michael Ben Sarah, Dvora Bat Susanna, Benayahu Ben Ilana, Geula Ben Batya, David Ben Esriya, Doris Bat Zora, Levana Bat Sarah, Sarah Bat Levana, Ovadia Ben Levana, Menashe Ben Nekadam, Allah Bat Shura, David Yaakov Ben Miriam, Gidon Ben Kalila, Risha Gabriel Ben Michael, Yaakov Ben Yeshua, Yechiel Ben Nekadam. And all of Am Yisrael, Be'ezrat Hashem, will have Refuah Shlema, Refuat HaNefesh, Refuat HaGuf. Also for Zivug, Be'ezrat Hashem, Atzlacha Be'zivug Agun, a tzadika, Kdosha, that's able to be modest, Be'ezrat Hashem. In this day and age, it's the Mesirut Nefesh of the women is to be modest. That's the biggest mitzvah for all of women. So Be'ezrat Hashem, Igal Ben Moshe will find a shidduch. Be'ezrat Hashem should be a tzadika, Torah, Yafa, and even Ashira is good too. Also a zivug for Rivka Esther Bat Dvora. Bezrat Hashem shall have a zivug, and Yaakova Ziva Bat Sheva. Bezrat Hashem will also have a zivug. Bezrat Hashem they'll have tzadikim kdoshim with yirat shamayim, which in this day and age is also the mesirut nefesh of the generation, is to acquire these traits, to have enough yirat shamayim, enough fear of Hashem, where we actually want to listen to Him. So we'll start off with a couple of questions. And you have to answer those questions to yourself. You don't have to necessarily answer to me. You have to ask yourself these questions. First question is, if you weren't Jewish, I'm assuming everybody here is Jewish, Baruch Hashem. If you weren't Jewish, let's say you were born in Bangladesh, or you were born in, in Saudi Arabia. Your best friend was, one of these terrorists. You weren't a Jew, okay? And you found out about Judaism. Found out, oh, there's this religion. Am Yisrael got Torah in Mount Sinai. There's this guy named Moshe. Sounds like a nice guy. He was 7 meters tall, which is 20 feet, by the way. Really big guy, according to us. All these wonderful things. And he got Torah. And everybody agrees it's true. The Muslims agree, the Christians agree, the atheists agree, they just don't want to listen. Everybody agrees it's true. And you agree it's true too. Would you convert to Judaism?
No.
The honest answer is no. The honest answer for most people in the world is no. And the reason why is because most of us don't actually know what it means to be a Jew. We don't actually view it like it's a zchut, like it's a merit to be a Jew. How do we know? Just look at the streets today. If you look at the Italians are proud to be Italian. They have their flags, they have their pastas, they have their restaurants, they have their attitude, their language. Regardless of where they go in the world, they're proud to be Italian. You go to the Irish people, they convince the whole world that there's one day a year you're supposed to all drink, and everybody agrees. So we drink too. L'chaim to the Irish. Mexicans play soccer with each other. You're not even allowed to play soccer with them. Why? Because that's the Mexican tradition. That's what they do. And so on and so forth. The Puerto Ricans and the blacks. And go to the Muslims. The Muslims are so proud to be Muslims that they're praying in the middle of the street. In the middle of the street, they stop traffic, they stop praying. They're Allahu Akbar and everything else. They're proud to do what they're doing. They sell their halal food. And they do something called dawah. What's dawah? Dawah is, in Hebrew, kiruv. It's to get people to become Muslim. And their job for the last 2 decades, the last 20 years, has been to convince the entire world that your only solution is to become a Muslim. And this is why, even when you go to one of these trucks and the corners all over New York and all over the United States, you see these trucks, they sell halal food. On the halal food truck, you also see a sticker in Arabic. And most people, if you don't speak Arabic, you don't know what it means. But what does that actually mean? This is, they say, God is the only God, and Muhammad is our messenger. And they give this to different customers that keep coming back. So you ask the patron, what is this? Why you give him stickers? You go, I'm trying to help him to be a Muslim. But he's a Christian, he's a Jew, he's something else. Yeah, I'm trying to help him out. The only way he's going to get to Gan Eden, according to this Muslim, is if he converts, he becomes a Muslim. He says, so you're doing dawah while you're doing business. He goes, no. Dawah is what I do. Business is just on the side. The business is on the side. The number one priority for the guy selling halal food, for the guy that's running the mosques, for any Arab all over the world, 2 billion of them, is to do dawah. Why to do dawah? Why to get the world to become Muslims? Number one reason, they actually believe their lie. Even though their whole concept, everything that they have is a lie. We all know it. You just look at the Quran, within 5 minutes you realize it's shtuyot. There's wrong dates, there's wrong numbers, there's wrong everything. They say that Jesus is a family member of Moshe Rabbeinu, Haman, knew Paro, they lived 1,000 years difference. You don't need to be a genius, you just look at the two, it's wrong. But they don't look at it. So they believe whatever their leaders say. But the reality is that even if you show them these mistakes, they're still going to stay Muslim. Why? Listen, I'm already in it. If I leave, they're going to kill me anyway. What's the word? They're going to kill my kids. They're going to kill me. There's no way. I'm not leaving. Once you're in, you're in. That's why in general, even though there's a lot of people converting to Judaism today, Baruch Hashem, and we deal with a lot of them, very, very rarely do you ever see a Muslim convert out of Islam. And it's not because they don't believe. I have many of them that tell me they believe. They send me messages, they want to learn, but they can't convert out. Why? Because they know there's a sacrifice that includes their life. It's not just a marriage issue. So anyway, the problem, Rabotai, is that the Muslims live their lie and believe in their lie like it's true. The Christians that worship an idol that died 2,000 years ago, they also believe their lie. They send people from house to house, whether it's Jehovah's Witness, or it's Jews for Jesus, or it's this new thing over the last maybe 10 years called Messianic Judaism, which is also Christianity, just called Judaism. For the first time in history, first time in 2,000 years, the Christians are pretending to be Jews. For 2,000 years, they were busy killing us. 2,000 years, they're busy killing us. In the last 20 years, they said, you know what? We tried killing them for 2,000 years. These people don't die. So let's just get them to, let's pretend like we're them. So we'll get them to become Christians anyway. So you have organizations that spend over $300 million a year just in Israel to recruit Jews to convert to Christianity. And every week, unfortunately, 1,000 Jews convert to Christianity. Why? Because the Christians believe their lie and live accordingly. The Jews, on the other hand, unfortunately us, we actually have the truth, and everyone knows it. but we live our life like it's a lie. We have the truth, but we live it like it's a lie. Why? When was the last time you told a Jew, come to my house, keep Shabbat? When was the last time you told you, come to Shul Torah? No, come on, you got to do tshuva. When was the last time you told a guy, listen, the girl that you're dating is not Jewish, you should leave her? When was the last time you told a guy, listen, you know, you really got to start changing your diet, you have to eat kosher? Once in a while you'll tell your friend, but as soon as he gives you an attitude, you stop. Even more so, when was the last time you told a goy, a non-Jew, hey, you have any interest in Judaism? Instead of believing in an idol? The numbers continue to shrink. And the reason why is because we don't know what it means to be a Jew. We don't know what our mission is. And simply put, we're not even proud of it. If we were, at the very least, we'd be just like them. We'd go door to door begging people to come to Shurei Torah. Instead of having 100 people here, there'd be 10,000. And still 10,000 people waiting outside. Jews, non-Jews, people waiting. Oh, there's truth somewhere? I'm going. In France, Rabotai, there are 1,300 mosques. 1,300 mosques in France. In France, 1,300 mosques. But on Friday night, which is their Shabbat, Le'avdil, people show up to the mosque 1 hour before time. 1 hour before the prayer starts, they show up already. Why? To catch a place, to find a spot. Because if you don't come an hour before, you have to stand outside. There's not enough room. In 1,300 mosques. If you look at us, we barely get a minyan sometimes. You barely get 10 guys to show up to shul in some places. Why? We still don't understand what it means. This is how I spent most of my life. Most of my life I was just like every other Jew in the world, confused, not knowing really what the purpose of life is. And just like the statistic in America, according to PEW research, 90% of American Jews do not keep Shabbat. 90%. 90% of American Jews don't keep Shabbat. And even worse, 66% don't believe that you have to believe in God in order to be Jewish. They don't think that believing in God and being Jewish have anything to do with each other. Meaning that we've confused what Judaism is. We think Judaism is something like a tradition. It's something nice. It's like the way, you know, it's like where I grew up, a certain neighborhood, like the guys from Brooklyn, or the guys from this way, or the guys from that. I think it's like, it's a nice thing. The kippah looks good. It's like the guys from Africa that walk around in underwear. No different. If you go to Africa, you're going to look at them like they're strange. Why? They're walking around with underwear. They're going to look at you with the kippah and the suit and everything. You're strange. You're strange to them. They're strange to you. Your custom versus their customs. Now, I'm not talking to people that are not religious. I'm talking to you, to all of Am Yisrael, which includes the religious community. Because out of the 90% of people that don't keep Shabbat, 94% believe that it's okay to work on Shabbat. Which means that 40% of the religious ones, the ones that actually keep Shabbat, still think it's okay to work on Shabbat. Like working on Shabbat and Shabbat have nothing to do with each other. Which means we're really confused. This was me. This was me for most of my life. I came to the United States when I was 10 years old from Israel. And as soon as we landed in America, we became American. Even though I didn't know the language, I knew maybe a few letters of the alphabet. Merhaba, have a seat. It's your place anyway. So, we didn't really know much. I knew the first few letters of the alphabet because it was in a cereal box. And other than that, I didn't know much. But when you come to the United States when you're 10 years old, you learn pretty quickly. And you fast forward a few years. I started working when I was young. Went to school. I was a good student. But I also knew that I didn't want to be in school for a million years. I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't be a lawyer. And I didn't want to be in school for 100 years. I already knew what money was when I was already 17. So I decided to go into the stock market business. I became a stockbroker. The first couple of years were very interesting. My bosses made a ton of money. I made absolutely nothing. This is usually how it works. First 3 years, what they call, I paid my dues. They made $50,000 to $100,000 a month. I made $1,000 a month. Good deal, no? But that eventually ended. And eventually I went on my own, meaning I became my own broker. In July of 2001. July of 2001. Everyone knows what happened in September of 2001. September 11th of 2001 was just a couple of months after I became my own broker, which means that the little business I didn't even have collapsed. But it was also a very good time to start a business. And that's what I did. I continued getting more and more clients. All of the people that were losing money everywhere else, it was very easy to acquire them as clients because I gave them hope. People like to start something new, especially if they're losing. Fast forward, I worked very hard. But I worked the type of hard where it's not like 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or 9 to 7. I started my day at 5 and I finished my day at about 2. I went to the city. I figured that everyone else in the office, they've been in the business for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So I can't catch up to their experience overnight because experience is very valuable in the business. But I can't outwork everyone. They work 9 to 5. So that's less hours than what I could work. They work 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours. Okay, I'll work 20 hours. And that was my logic. If I work 20 hours, that means that I'll work double as them, and I'll catch up faster. Now, the first 6 months, it didn't actually really work out. All it did is make me go broke. I didn't have any money to eat. I had to borrow $1 from this guy, Dimitri, every day, so I could have a donut and coffee. I had to sneak on a bus every day so I could get home. The bus driver kicked me out a few times because I didn't have money on a Metro card. But that was the first 6 months. After that, things started actually working. I made my first $1,000. Then the second month, I made $5,000. And then a month after that, I made $7,000. Then after that, $10,000. And then a month after that, another $10,000. And a month after that, about $15,000. And then a month after that, $117,000. That was my first big break. Made $117,000 in 1 month. Started getting people's attention. After that, everything changed. Over the next year, I made another $1 million. After that, everything changed even more. After that, we started printing money. And that's really what it got to. It got to a point where on a bad month, I'd make $200,000. Meaning if I just didn't show up. I decided to work once a month. Once, twice a month, show up to the office. I'd always be in the office, but I'd never actually, I had people do my job. I'd still make $200,000. If I really wanted to work, on May of 2006, I made $1.6 million. So imagine, a 20-something-year-old little kid, just got out of diapers a few years before, is making millions of dollars and doesn't know right, left, or anything else. I had some life experience, I had some nice things to say, and so on and so forth, but in reality, I was still in my 20s. Still knew nothing. But I was convinced I knew everything, just like everyone else. Now, Rav Nisim Yagen, alav shalom, was one of the most important Mizakei Rabim, Kiruv rabbis in the history of Am Yisrael. Most people don't know who he is if you're in the American world, but if you're Israeli, you should know who he is. And he used to say in some of his lectures, Mi gever la'asot tshuva. Like, who is like a hero? Who's man enough to do tshuva? Now, a lot of people always thought this is just like his own language, his own thing, his own saying, his own idea. What does it mean? Who's man enough to do tshuva? What do you have to be such a man to do tshuva? Why do you have to be such a hero to do tshuva? But the reality is, it's actually a pasuk in the Torah. Not exactly in those words, but very similar. It says, Mi gevel, yichye velo yireh mavet, imlat nafsho miyat sheol sela. It says, who is a man and will never see death, and will rescue his soul from the grasp of Sheol, which is Gehenom. In so many words, the sages explain to us, is who's man enough to save his own neshama. How? To do tshuva. Just like Rav Nisim again used to say. Who's man enough to do tshuva, to save himself from Gehenom, and will live forever? Now, most of us don't like to hear such things. We don't like to hear about Gehenom. We don't like to hear about hard things. We don't like to hear about cancer. We don't like to hear about bad things, but bad things happen. And yesterday I had a shiur in Far Rockaway. It was a nice young woman that after the shiur we had questions and answers and so on. And she told me, listen, I heard enough times that you have to be modest, you have to be modest, you have to be modest, but it's annoying already. It's annoying already. I don't want to hear it anymore. I said, you're right, it is annoying. It is annoying. But I have to ask you a question. If, let's say, for example, you had a favorite candy. You had a favorite candy. And I showed you the candy. The candy was on the table. Delicious candy. You've been waiting for this candy for 2 years. And finally you see the candy's on the table. And you're about to go take it and eat it. But I know something you don't. The candy is full of poison. Now I know if I tell you it's full of poison, you're going to be really upset. Why? Because you've been waiting for this candy for 2 years. You're going to be really upset. You may even start crying. It's your favorite candy. All you've been doing for 2 years is thinking about this candy. So if I tell you, I'm going to ruin the whole thing for you. So would you prefer me not to tell you? Because if I tell you, I'm going to ruin the whole thing for you. You're not going to be able to eat the candy. But if I don't tell you, you eat the candy, and what's going to happen when you eat poison? You die. To which one? Same price. Which one do you pick? And that, Rabotai, is the difference between emet and shekel. The emet, the truth, hurts. Why? Because we've all been planning to live shekel. We've all been planning to live our lifestyle without anyone getting in our way. We've all been convinced that whatever we're doing is fine. We have nothing to change. You go to people that are religious. You go to people that are secular. You ask him, what do you think? You need to change anything? He says, I'm perfect. You ask his wife, she says he has to change everything. You ask him about his wife, he says she has to change everything. She has to change it. Everybody has to change everything, but you tell about yourself, no one has to change anything. We're all convinced that our sheker is emet. When someone comes and tells you the emet, it's painful. Not all of us wanted to hear it. Now the problem is that in today's age, the leaders we have, the rabbis, the speakers, also know this story. They also know that you like the shekel. I like the shekel. I like lies. You like lies. Everyone wants to live a lie. No one wants to be told what to do. Who likes to be told what to do? No one. Not even the little kids like to be told what to do. No one. Everyone wants to do whatever they want. No one wants to be told how to dress. No one wants to be told what to eat. No one likes to be told what to do. So the rabbis also know this. And they figured, listen, if I tell people the truth, they're probably going to fire me. Because if I tell them they have to keep Shabbat and stop driving, they're probably going to fire me. If I tell them that they can't eat at every restaurant that says it's kosher, they're probably going to fire me. If I start telling them that their wives are, technically according to the Torah, not modest, and they have to take off the wig, and they have to start putting on clothes, and start showing the world what they look like naked, they're going to probably fire me. So the rabbis and the speakers learn this, and they realize, listen, it's survival of the fittest. If I tell them the truth, they're going to fire me. Then my kids are not going to have anywhere to go to school. They're not going to have anything to eat. They're not going to have anywhere to sleep. So I have to protect myself. So what happens? They became part of the shekel, unfortunately. And they stopped telling people the truth. This, unfortunately, is one of the biggest chorbanot, one of the biggest disasters in Jewish history. But it's not the first time that it happened. It's been happening since Churban Bet HaMikdash. In the Gemara Masechet Shabbat, page 54a, it says that Hashem Yitbarach changed the Gzerah. There was a decree on Am Yisrael to punish the wicked and save the righteous. The people that were keeping Shabbat, keeping Torah, learning Torah, and so on, save them. The people Mechalel Shabbat, going out with non-Jews, eating non-kosher, all that, destroy them with the Bet HaMikdash. But then for the first time in history, Hashem changed the decree from positive to negative. Why? The Yetzer Hara, the Satan, the Malach HaMavet came to Hashem and said, Hashem, why are you saving these ones and not these ones? These are Reshaim and these are Reshaim. He says, why are you saying the Reshaim? Why are you saying the Reshaim? They filled the whole Torah. They learned Torah from day and night. They kept Shabbat. They kept kosher. Their wives are kosher. He's a kosher. Everything is kosher. They even have a kosher stamp on them. Everything is good. They have a beard, reaches the floor. Everything is good. What's wrong? He says, yes, but they knew the truth and they didn't tell anybody else. They knew that you have to keep Shabbat. They didn't tell the Chiloni. They knew that you can't go out with a non-Jew. They didn't tell the Chiloni. They knew the truth, but they never shared it with anybody else because they were scared to get fired. Hashem says, the Gemara says, Hashem says, you're right. punish them first. Not only punish them, kill them first, before the Chiloni. Before him. Why? It's his fault. It's the religious guy's fault. Why? Because the Chiloni, the secular guy, is never going to do tshuva without the religious guy doing tshuva first. Because no one's going to tell the secular guy. The same thing is happening today, Rabotai. Our leaders today are scared to tell you the truth. Because they're scared that if they tell you the truth, you're going to stop donating. You're going to fire them. You're not going to welcome them into your Beit Knesset. Good news is, I don't really care. And the reason why is because I care more about your neshama than I care about your money. Not that I have any money, I lost all of it. But I still care less. And the reason is because I had a lot of it. And by now, I know it's worthless. And this is why. After I made over $20 million, I thought that I was on top of the world. I thought that I will probably never have to work hard for the rest of my life. And I thought that Bill Gates should start being worried because I'm about to take his place. If I already made $20 million by the time I'm in my mid-20s, God only helped Bill Gates by the time I'm 40. He's going to work for me. That was my mind. I was going to conquer the world. When it came to Judaism, though, I was selective. Not like my job. My job, I did whatever I had to do to survive. I was honest. I was ambitious. I never cheated. I never lied. I never did anything wrong. And I was very generous with people. So when it came to work, I followed the system. Came to Judaism, when it came to Hashem, I picked and chose whatever I wanted. So someone said, you can't work on Shabbat. I said, okay, I won't work on Shabbat. I'll go to the casino instead. Instead of going to work, I'm not going to work. I'll go play poker. I like poker. I was good at math. I'm not working. Makes sense, no? To a secular person, it makes all the sense in the world. $50,000 on the table. Baruch haba. They'd start a table for me. They said, you have to eat kosher. I said, okay, so I'll eat kosher at home. When I'm not home, I'll eat non-meat. So I'll go to the non-kosher restaurant, but I won't eat the meat. And I won't eat, any of the shrimps. I'll just eat pasta and salads and pizza. What's wrong with pasta and salad and pizza from the non-kosher guy? Why, you racist? You're racist? What's wrong with you guys? Little do I know that the actual sauce inside your pizza, your non-kosher pizza, the sauce has meat in it. That's the distinguishing taste between different sauces, by the way. So the non-kosher pizza is not only non-kosher because the cheese is not kosher, but because the sauce is not kosher. And in fact, the cheese itself, the reason why when you go to the supermarket, you see in a regular supermarket, not a kosher supermarket, a regular supermarket, you see there's 3, 4, 5, 6 different cheeses that are kosher, and 300 that are not kosher. Why? They have like a corner on the market, they know how to make cheese better than us? As a matter of fact, no one makes better cheese than Jews. If you go to Eretz Yisrael, you go to the supermarket, they have an entire aisle of cheese. There's no better cheese in the world than Jewish cheese. But in America, and the Western world in general, you only have 3, 4, 5 companies that actually reach the market. But the Goyim, 300 different ways. Why? Because they have the ability to use all ingredients that we're not allowed to use. And the way they distinguish the taste in their cheese is by different type of meat. Different type of meat that they mix with the cheese. So when you eat non-kosher cheese, not only are you eating non-kosher something dairy, but you're also eating milk and meat at the same time. I didn't know this. So I picked and chose different laws because I thought that if I go to Beit Knesset a couple of times a year for Yom Kippur, everything is going to be fine. Hashem is going to forgive me. As long as I give tzedakah, that's the number one mitzvah, according to the rabbis that would come to my office 3 or 4 times a week. They would say, listen, number one thing in this generation is give tzedakah. I said, no problem, I'm good at this. How much? How much? Oh, I need $2,500 for my mortgage. Check. How much more? I need another $2,500 for somebody else's mortgage. Check. And I would give the money. Why? For me, it was like paper. Not because I had a lot, because I never had value for it. I never cared about it. It's not my tikkun. It's not my tikkun. Some people love money like it's God. Me, I care less about it. I don't know. It's the way Hashem created me. So when I had a lot of it, it was easy for me to give it to people. So the guy said, I'm going to be a tzaddik if I give money. I give money. Sefer Torah, People need money, Anyone need anything, they come to my office, they get a check. Usually they start giving me their problems because you have to convince somebody to give you money. I just tell them, how much does your problem cost? Whatever your problem is, just save me the time. I know it's a story, it's a half hour, it's an hour, it's nice. Just how much does it cost? Why? Because every hour of mine costs $3,200. Every hour I work, I make $3,200 just to exist. So if you're going to take an hour and your problem is going to cost me only $2,000, I'd rather just give you the $2,000 instead of an hour. Get the math? So that was my mentality. You pick and choose what you want. Somebody tells you tzedakah is number one, that's what you do. Now Hashem had different plans. Hashem's plans were quite different. One day, after I made a ton of money in a relatively short period of time, in 2006, I decided that, you know what, I want to have a surgery, I want to fix my body a little bit. There was something that was annoying me called hemorrhoids, which 2/3 out of all men have, or all people have. It's not really a real problem. It's just it was annoying me twice a year. So I said, let me have a surgery. And the surgery, according to the best doctors that I was going to, said it's a surgery that's just going to disturb you for maybe 2-3 days. You'll be uncomfortable, which in our language means you'll be in pain. And you'll be back to work on Monday. I said, no problem. I went, I had the surgery. I woke up out of the surgery different. How different? I started screaming and yelling and screaming and yelling and asking everybody to kill me. Because now something happened during the surgery. They cut some type of nerve in my body that changed the makeup of my body to the point where everything hurt. Now by everything, I don't mean like when you have a headache or when you have a toothache. You ever have a toothache and it seems like your leg hurts too, but it really doesn't? No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is like they took a dagger and they started cutting my body up while connecting it to electricity and it didn't stop. And that's how much it hurt. And this pain continued for 62 days. For 62 days, the most amount of consecutive sleep that I was able to get after eating about 30 to 40 painkillers is 15 minutes. Now, once you stop sleeping for so long, you start losing your mind and your body starts failing. You start peeing blood, your eyes start bleeding, your ears start bleeding, a lot of fun things. You start seeing life a little different. You start valuing money less. You start finding out that none of your friends actually exist. They're all imaginary friends. They all disappear. Everything changes. Your perspective on life changes. And that was my first big wake-up call. I had a surgery, everything went wrong, and now all I wanted to do was I wanted to live. Without money, it didn't make a difference. After those 2 months, I thought that life was going to get back to itself. I was still on painkillers, I was still in pain, but nowhere near the same. And I went back to work, I went back to making money, I went back to my life, but I started reflecting a little bit more. Now, at this point, I still have no idea that my life is wrong. I just think that I have to double check certain things. So I buy a Sefer Torah. I get one made in Yerushalayim, takes about a year, big mitzvah, ton of money. I figured this is going to be good. Didn't really work out so much. Because 9 months later, I had a surgery. Because one day I wake up with a pain in my leg, so much that I can't walk. I go to the emergency room and they tell me that I have an infection between the muscle of the rectal area and the leg. That's so big, that's internal, that if I would have waited another hour or two, it would have exploded, went into my blood system, and I would have died on the spot. So I was very lucky to show up on time. And it said we have to have an emergency surgery, and this surgery is much, much worse than your first one, sir. So now, instead of being in pain for 62 days and at home, instead I'm in the intensive care unit for almost a month. You know, next to the people that are dying, next to those guys. One guy died, another guy died, everybody's dying. I was the guy that actually survived. Pressing the morphine button like as it's the only reflex that's still working. So after that fun experience, I figured, okay, strike two. Now we're going to go back. This time we're going to do it. 6 months later, I'm back at the intensive care unit. Another surgery. Another infection in a completely different area, not connected to the first. Okay, fine. Another month in the hospital. We recover. We leave. Go back to life, right? 3 months later, we're back there. Oh, Yaron, they know me by first name by now. Your room is right over here. I'm back in the hospital, another surgery. I leave, a month later I'm back. And then it gets to a point where it's every month. And then eventually it's every week. And that was my life. And this continues, Rabotai Yekarim, for 7 years. For 7 years, my body continues to fail in every way imaginable, to a point where I'm in pain 24 hours a day. But now I'm not talking about pain like your head hurts. I'm talking about pain where it's uncomfortable to be next to me. Not uncomfortable to be me. Me, it's kal vachomer, it's needless to say. It's uncomfortable for you to be next to me, because I'm constantly screaming and yelling and ow and ooh, and after a while it's annoying. Even though you feel bad for the guy, after a while it's annoying to hear somebody screaming all day. I know, I was next to other intensive care unit guys. It was very annoying to hear them scream all day. So after a while it's uncomfortable, especially with the faces and the blood and this. It's a nightmare. So this forced me to also become a little bit more secluded. I didn't really want to see people much. My business started going to nothing. And incidentally, the market crashed. The 2008 crashed along the way. My net worth crashed. My friends crashed. My life crashed. Everything crashed. As miraculous as it was to make all the money, it was a bigger miracle losing all of it. But then one day, I got to a point where I realized that it's really not worth living in pain 24 hours a day. For what? Just to be in pain again tomorrow? So I decided, you know what, maybe it's time for me to leave the world. Now Hashem loves you more than you love yourself. And the sages promise us that He's not going to give you a test that you can't handle. That's what He said. He's not going to give you a test that you can't handle. So as soon as I got to the point where I couldn't handle the test anymore, that's when Hashem got involved. But to a point where it was obvious, even to me. So one day I decided to call my mom, which was the first time I called her in a while, and she's crying on the other side of the phone, and she's telling me, talk to him, talk to him. And I said, to who, and why are you crying, and why is this guy making you crying if you want me to talk to him? And he says, talk to Ephraim. I said, who's Ephraim, Bechlal? Who's Ephraim? Why is he crying? Why is he making you cry, this Ephraim? He says, Ephraim is your cousin, he's in Israel, he knows Torah. I said, okay, great, so as long as you stop crying, tell him to call me, I'll talk to anybody. It's the worst thing in the world is to hear your mom cry. So, he calls me, and I didn't know who Ephraim was. When we left Israel, he was still a baby. He was much younger than I am. And I said, fine, you want to call me? Call me. So he called me. I've heard from a lot of religious people. At least 2 or 3 of them would show up to my office every week. And every single one of them never ever told me that I have to change. Never told me I have to keep Shabbat. Never told me that I have to marry a Jewish woman. Never told me that it's a real problem that my wife was not Jewish. Never told me that it's a problem that I just created my own religion. All they told me is that I have to give tzedakah. Why? Because we, as a people, have conditioned our rabbis to not tell us the truth. Because as soon as they tell us the truth, we kick them out. As soon as we tell them the truth, no, you're making that up. That's your own thing. That's a chumrah. You're machmir. You're this. You start calling them names. You start doing all these different types of things. So the rabbis are playing scared. Le'avdil, but in the poker world, one of the things that makes people good at gambling is when they have no fear. And the way they capitalize on it is by capitalizing on people that are scared. They're scared to lose the money. This is what makes rich people really good gamblers. It's not because they're smart. It's because they're not scared of losing the money. It's also what makes the Palestinians very good terrorists. They're not scared of dying. So even if you shoot them, it's good for them. They're celebrating even more. That's why you can't beat them that way. So now, when you go to work every day, and a rabbi follows you every day, and every day he's telling you the same thing, the one mitzvah, give tzedakah, give tzedakah, give tzedakah, give tzedakah, nothing else, maybe once in a while do tefillin, you feel like you're doing fine. And then one day this guy from Yerushalayim calls you and he starts telling you you're not doing fine. But he doesn't start off right away. He starts giving me a few stories. We have a very interesting conversation for an hour and 40 minutes. I ask him a question. He tells me that the same question was asked by some sage 300 years ago, or 500 years ago, or 1,000 years ago. And he tells me the page number and the book name and all these wonderful things. And we have this conversation. And then the next week, at the same time, on Thursday at 4 o'clock, we have another conversation for 3 hours. And the next Thursday, 5 hours. And the next Thursday, 7 hours. And every week this continues, and my life starts to change. And the reason why is because for the first time in my life, I started realizing that I'm in debt. But it's not to the IRS, it's not to the banks, it's not to any friends, it's not to any family. I'm in debt to God. He brought me to the world, and I've been treating him like as if he owes me something instead of I owe him something. And that was the second big wake-up call for me, when I started realizing that my life is upside down. And all God's trying to do is wake me up. So I started learning with him, and then I started learning on my own, and I started realizing that the Torah is not just a Harry Potter book. It's not just an elective. As much as we would all like to treat the Torah as something that's nice, I started realizing that the Torah is not like that. In the book of Jeremiah, Hashem tells the prophet to tell Am Yisrael, my people have committed two evils. They've forsaken me, the source of living water, to dig for themselves cisterns, broken cisterns that cannot hold water. This is in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 2, verse 13. Hashem Yitbarach tells the prophet, go tell Am Yisrael that they are bogdim, they're traitors. Why? Not only did they not worship me, they didn't do tefillot, they didn't do tzedakot, they didn't do masrot, they didn't keep Shabbat, they didn't keep... Yeah, not only they didn't keep the mitzvot, it's not only that. That's already enough. But instead they replaced me with something else. They replaced me, the source of all water, the source of all chaim, of all life, with what? With their avodah zarah. With their nothing. What's the avodah zarah? Baruch Hashem, very few Jews worship idols today. So what's the avodah zarah? What's the avodah zarah? Now, Be'ezrat Hashem, in a couple of weeks, we're all going to celebrate Pesach. And the story of Pesach begins with the Exodus, begins with Yetziat Mitzrayim, how Hashem put the 10 plagues, destroyed the biggest civilization in history, took the Egyptians that were much bigger than the Americans, the Chinese, and the Russians all put together, and destroyed them. Made the slaves the master, and the master the servant. First and last time in history that such a thing happened. And then he took us out of Egypt. He split the sea for us. And we got to Mount Sinai. Now Mount Sinai, which was the culmination of all of it, it was Matan Torah. Now the parasha that we get the Torah is called what parasha? Parashat Yitro. So the question is, if Parashat Yitro, the number one event at Parashat Yitro, is Matan Torah, why is it called Parashat Matan Torah? Why is it called Parashat Yitro? If we got the Torah called Matan Torah, every other parasha is named basically after the main event of the parasha. Every parasha. Parashat Bereshit, Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim et haaretz. Parashat Noach, Noach ish tzadik tamim bedorotav, and so on and so forth. Who is the main character in the parasha? What's the main thing? If it's Matan Torah, call it Parashat Matan Torah. We receive the Torah. Why is it called Parashat Yitro? Because Yitro, Rabotai, is the one that connects the beginning, the middle, and the end of this point. At the beginning of the shiur, I asked you, if you were born not Jewish, would you convert? And most people will answer the honest answer, which is no. That's the honest answer. Some say yes because they like to think that they would be so righteous as a Gentile as they would want to be a Jew. But the reality is no. And the reason is because most of us don't even like being Jewish even though we're already Jewish. We look at the Torah as an obligation. We look at the Torah as a responsibility. We look at the Torah as something that's restricting us. Like, you got us to a shiur and you want us to listen? You got us to the Beit Knesset and you want us to give tzedakah? You should give us tzedakah for coming. You should give us money for coming. You got us to learn and you want us to remember what we learned? We look at the Torah as like, come on, no? It's like, it's enough already that we're listening. You want us to do also? Naaseh v'nishma? Naaseh is enough. But Parashat Yitro starts with the most important thing in the entire parasha. Vayishma. Vayishma Yitro. Yitro heard. What did he hear? He heard about the miracles that happened to Am Yisrael. He heard about what happened in Mitzrayim. He heard what happened with Yam Suf. He heard about what happened with Amalek. He heard, and that was enough for him. It was enough for him. He heard what Hashem Itbarach did for Am Yisrael, and for him, that's it. That was enough. I'm leaving my Pope job, $100,000 a month. I'm leaving it. I'm going to become a Jew with no money, with no family, with no nothing. I'm going to become a Jew. That's it. I'm finished. He gave up everything. Vayishma Yitro. Vayishma Yitro. That's it. That was it. At the moment of truth, Yitro heard the truth, and he said, it's time to change. I've tried every avodah zarah there is, whether it's the idols, or it's the oceans, or it's money, or it's fame, or it's fortune, or it's women, or it's men, whatever. He tried everything. He heard about the God of Israel. He says, the God of Israel punishes measure for measure. Because just like he punished the Egyptians with the ocean, I realized that he could punish us with anything. Why? If he punished the Egyptians with, he just killed them, just like some hurricane came and killed all the Egyptians, it could be a natural event. But the fact that he killed them with the water, that shows that he's punishing measure for measure, meaning that he's also in control of the water. He's also in control of everything else. Because they killed Am Yisrael with water, they threw the babies into the water, he's killing them with water. They didn't let us go into the mikveh, he made their water into blood. They didn't let us take showers, he made all their things smell with the frogs. Every single thing, every way that he punished them was measure for measure. He says, if Hashem not only knows about all the things that the Egyptians did to the Jews, but he's actually punishing them with those same things, that means he's in control of everything. Vayishma Yitro, I've heard enough. I've heard, he's the God of Israel, he's Emet, that's it, I'm leaving everything. So Yitro did something most of us are not willing to do. Yitro said, I'm leaving money, I'm leaving power, I'm leaving idolatry, and I'm going to become a Jew. I'm going to become one of the persecuted people. Now, why did Yitro get such a merit? Why did Yitro get such a merit to be, not only have the zchut to do tshuva? The Rambam says at the end of days before Mashiach comes, you have to have zchut to do tshuva. Not everybody's going to do tshuva. The Gemara in Masechet Ta'anit says when the Mashiach comes, not everybody's going to be happy. Why? Most people are going to die. Tachlis, bottom line. Why? Most people are not going to do tshuva. And the Rambam gives a commentary, he says, why? You have to have zchut. You have to have merit to do tshuva. Not just because you're a Jew, you're going to do tshuva. Not just because you came to a shiur, you're going to do tshuva. You have to have mamash zchut to actually hear the truth and do it. Many of us hear the truth for 20 years, we still don't want to do it. B'ezrat Hashem, we hear it now. Yitro heard it one time. That was enough. Why did he have such a merit? Now in the Gemara Masechet Megillah, we read it just a few months ago in Purim. Purim, you guys all celebrate Purim, the costumes, the Oznei Aman, everybody pretends to be something else. The Jews pretend to be Goyim, the Goyim pretend to be Jews. It's all fun. Now, in Purim, we have a Gemara Masechet Megillah. On Purim, we read Megillat Esther, And for the first time in the entire Tanakh, we have the word Yehudi, the word Jew. You're not going to find the word Yehudi in the entire 5 books of Moses. Not once is there a word Yehudi. Jew is not once in the Torah. But in the Tanakh, you'll find it in Megillat Esther. So the Gemara asks, why was Mordechai called the first Yehudi? Why? Because Mordechai marad be'avodah zarah. Mordechai was proud to be a Jew, and he went against idolatry. He went against avodah zarah. Which means that the definition of a Jew is not just someone that says Baruch Hashem and Bezrat Hashem and gives tzedakah once in a while. It's someone that fights against anything that's against Hashem, number one being avodah zarah. Yitro, Rabotai, if you all remember the Midrash that we all heard, Yitro was one of the 3 servants of Paro. Paro had 3 servants. He had Eov, he had Bilam, and he had Yitro. When he asked them, in Sefer Shmot, he asked them, what should we do with this Bnei Israel? What should we do with them? Avanitchak malach. Let's fool them into working for us. What do we do with them? Bilam said, let's kill them. Let's kill them. His punishment was, Am Yisrael killed him back. Job, said, no, leave them alone. Don't do anything. He didn't want to say much. His punishment was, Hashem gave him a lot of isurim, a lot of pain. Book of Job is full of isurim. He didn't say much. He didn't defend Am Yisrael. He says, you don't speak when the time to speak, I'll punish you. Yitro, on the other hand, Yitro stood up for the truth. Even though he didn't really know the God of Israel yet, he knew that Paro was not God. Even though Paro said he was God, Yitro knew Paro is not God. And he told him, listen, at the very least, you should be grateful for this Bnei Israel. Why? They're the ones that made you all the money. Yosef HaTzadik from the previous generation, he's the one that put you on the map. He built your stock market. He built your this commodity market. He built your this. He built your this. Why are you going against them for? He went against Avodah Zarah. For that, he got the schut. For that, he got the schut because he was Ish Emet. Even though he didn't know the entire truth, he knew that there's a truth in the world. When he heard the truth of Am Yisrael, when he heard the God of Israel, he realized, okay, Vayishma Yitro, that's enough for me. So this Yitro is someone that had a lot of merit to such an extent that his parasha that's named after him is when we have the highlight, the number one highlight in the entire Torah, which is Matan Torah. So we should listen to him. Now this Yitro was so big that even Moshe Rabbeinu learned from him. After he came to Mount Sinai, he told Moshe, listen Moshe, you're the judge, you're the jury, you're everything. Everybody's coming to you and asking you for advice. It's not a good plan. You have to build yourself a court system. A court system with judges, a court system with lawyers, a court system with different things. Okay. This is what, by the way, how our civil court system began. Even till this day. Supreme Court, and regular court, and so on and so forth. So Moshe listened to him. He says, okay, so who's going to run this court? He says you're going to have special people be the judges of this court. What are these people? He says they have to be Anshe Chayil, Yerei Elohim, Anshe Emet, Soneh Vatza. He says these people have to be accomplished people, meaning people with a little bit of money. So you can't buy them out. Yerei Elohim, people that have Yirat Shamayim, they're not going to sell out just because, of somebody's money. They're afraid of God. God's going to punish them. Anshe Emet, meaning that even if the Emet is against themselves, even if their daughter is the one they have to accuse, even if their son is the one that's going to go to jail, they're going to stand for it. Why? It's the Emet. That's the Emet. Emet is one. There's one Emet. There's no two Emets. There's only one truth. There's never two truths. There's no your truth and my truth, and somewhere in between is the real truth. There's one Emet. If we have two different truths, that means one of us is wrong. There's no two. So he says, Anshe Emet. So they have to be successful. They have to have Yirat Shamayim. They have to be anshe emet, they'll stand up for the truth, and last but not least, they have to hate money. What does that have to do with anything? If it's people that are successful, you could say, listen, if they're successful, no one's going to buy them out and bribe the jury and bribe the judge. Makes sense. If it's Yireh Shamayim, same concept. If he has Yirat Shamayim, you don't even bother bribing him. Why? Because he's afraid of God more than he's afraid of your checkbook. If it's somebody that's a Ish Emet, even if he doesn't have any money, he stands up for the truth even when it hurts. So you can't bribe him. So why does he also have to hate money? Why does he also have to hate money? Now the reality is, Rabotai, if you actually go on fast forward into this parasha, it says, "Vayishma Moshe lekol chotno, vayas kol asher amar." Moshe heard the voice of his father-in-law, Vitro, and he did everything he said. Vayivchar Moshe anshe chayil. And Moshe heard everything he said, and he found, and he got, who? Successful people. Wait a minute, what about the Ish Emet? What about the person that hates money? What about the person that has Yirat Shamayim? Chazal says there was nobody like that. All he had is successful people. All he had is people with money. No one was an Ish Emet yet. No one was somebody that hated money. Nobody had Yirat Shamayim yet. Even though we're Mount Sinai, still we didn't have yet. So now, Rabotai, the question is, why is it that hating money was the key ingredient to all of it? So the chidush that I had some time ago, Baruch Hashem, is that if somebody is successful, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have Yirat Shamayim. So that already disqualifies them. If somebody's Yirat Shamayim, it doesn't mean they're successful. There's plenty of people that have Yirat Shamayim, at least we hope so, but they don't have any money. If somebody's a Ish Emet, again, same thing. They probably may not have any money. They may have Yirat Shamayim, or they may be their own Emet, but their Emet is wrong. Their Emet is wrong. Their Emet is really false. But if somebody is Soneh Vatza, if somebody hates money, he must be all of them. He must be all of them. Why? Because you don't get to a level of hating materialism without being successful at least once in your life. And it doesn't necessarily mean materially successful. It also means spiritually successful. You've learned Torah. You don't get to hate materialism unless you have Yirat Shamayim. Because once you have Yirat Shamayim, you realize that Hashem is everything. If He's everything, everything else means nothing. As soon as you give power to anything in the world, whether it's money that you have or money that you don't have, the girl that you have or the girl that you want, the husband that you have or the husband that you wished for, the job that you want or the job that you wished for, all of these different things that we all stress over day and night, the sages explain to us, as soon as you stress about anything, you immediately make that thing your avodah zarah. Why? Because you have now given power to something different than God. As soon as you're worried about money, you're thinking money is more powerful than God. Money is separate from God. God built the world, He spent all of His money, now He's broke. You have to work on your own. You're on your own, buddy. He spent all of His money on Noach, because everybody ruined the world. You had to build it all over again. It was an unnecessary expense. But what are you going to do? Now you're stuck working. He spent all the money. Now you have to work overtime. It's 8 billion people in the world. 20 million of them approximately are Jews. But you can't find a zivug. Why? I don't know. Hashem made a mistake somewhere. So I have to go find her in clubs. I have to go find her in prostitution houses over there. That's where I have to find a girl. You want to find a nice Jewish girl in a club. Shem Elachem. Her and the 87 boyfriends she had in her life. She wants to find a guy. I want to find a guy. Okay, what kind of car does he have? Why don't you just date the car instead of the guy? Take the car for a ride. See if you like the car. Marry the guy. This, Rabotai, is our mistake. Why? We gave something else power. We gave money power. We gave the girl power. We gave the guy power. We gave something outside of God power. The reason why is because we weren't anshe emet. We didn't stand up for the truth when we saw it. And the reason why we didn't stand up for the truth is either because we didn't know it, because no one told us, or simply because we didn't care enough. But either way, that the outcome is, you cannot be a soneh vatza, a person that hates materialism, without these three different ingredients. Now, what does this have to do with us, other than everything? Is that at the end of the parasha, after we got the 10 commandments, the same parasha, we got Torah, we got the 10 commandments. Now, after we got the 10 commandments, 10 commandments says, I'm the God that took you out of Egypt, don't have any other God, don't use my name in vain, all these wonderful things, observe Shabbat, honor your parents, don't steal, don't murder, and so on and so forth. 10 wonderful commandments. And Hashem repeats these commandments to us. And after he finishes telling us all the commandments, we have this whole parasha starts, Yitro converts, he tells Moshe Rabbeinu, build a bet din with different judges that have these character traits, they're tzaddikim because they have da-da-da-da-da. Moshe says, I don't have anybody that has all these qualities, I only have successful people, okay, let's just put them there. We get the 10 commandments, we get the Torah, the oral Torah, the written Torah, all of this is repeated, and the world seems like it's complete. No. Hashem gives us a nevuah, gives us a prophecy of today, the day of Mashiach, the end of days. And after all of this Torah that we got, it says, Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, כה תאמר אל בני ישראל, אתם ראיתם, כי מן השמיים דיברתי עמכם. Hashem says to Moses, go say to the children of Israel, you have seen that I have spoken to you from heaven. Meaning, there's nobody here that says, oh no, I didn't hear anything. There's millions of people at Mount Sinai. No one is saying, hey, by the way, this book says that God spoke to us, I didn't hear anything. Meaning, this is a testimony that everyone was there, heard the voice of God. Saw the voice of God. Because it says, Atem ra'item. Ra'item means you saw my voice. Meaning that every time God spoke, his words were actually imprinted in the sky. So everybody agrees, you heard. Okay, great. And then he reminds them of one of the commandments. What is it? Lo ta'asun iti Elohei akesef ve'Elohei zav. Lo ta'asu lechem. Now you've just told us all 10 commandments. But then Hashem says, just remind you, I just gave you the 10 commandments. None of you are disagreeing, right? Just make sure, don't make yourself a god of money or a god of gold. Don't make for yourself. Why didn't he pick any of the other 10 commandments? Why didn't he pick any of the other 613 mitzvot that we have in the entire Torah? Why didn't he say, by the way, you heard everything I said? Good. Just don't forget. Don't stop. Keep Shabbat. By the way, marry Jewish. By the way, keep kosher. By the way, be modest. By the way, any number of mitzvot that we have. Why did he remind us of one mitzvah in the entire Torah? You gave us the 10 commandments, but now you're telling us, hey, by the way, don't make yourself a god of money and a god of gold. Rabotai Yekarim, because this verse is not just for this people. This verse is for us. This verse is telling us, before the Mashiach comes, you want to do tshuva, it has to start with money. It has to start with materialism. Why? Because that's the idolatry of all generations. Elohei HaKesef, Elohei HaZahav, the God of money and the God of gold, is the Avodah Zarah we've had for the last 3,000 years. It's an Avodah Zarah, it's an idol worship that hasn't left us. It's an Avodah Zarah that hasn't left us. So the question is, the second question that we have to ask ourselves is, how much are you willing to sell God out for? How much is your God worth? Every single person has to ask themselves this question seriously. Now you have two avrechim. Two people are learning Torah. Come, it's fine. They'll put you in the camera too, it's fine. The question you have to ask yourself is, how much is God worth to you? How much is he worth to you? What would you sell him for? Now, of course, you're all going to say, no, chas v'shalom, and all that. Right, great. How much are you going to sell him for? Bemet. How much are you going to sell him for? Now, everybody keeps Shabbat, I'm assuming, or at least most of us keep Shabbat. Hopefully. Said anybody, somebody, you keep Shabbat, right? Keep Shabbat. Okay. Baruch Hashem. Nobody answers, so I'm going to go on the one that I know for sure. Okay. So if I gave you $1,000, $1,000 cash, $20 bills, $100 bills, whatever you want, would you drive on Shabbat?
No.
No, right? Okay. So at the very least, you know God's worth $1,000 there. Now, if I ask the question, I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to ask. But if I ask the question, if I give you $1 million, I don't have. But if I had, and I put it with me in my bag over there that has everything except the camera. If I give you $1 million cash, I put it on the table instead of Sifrei Kodesh, I put $1 million cash. Would you drive on Shabbat? Now you have to start thinking about it. Huh? Oh, I give 10% maaser. Yeah, I give 10% maaser. You start making mitzvot out of this $1 million. Now we have an answer for our question, Rabotai. Now we have an answer to our question, and the reality is, it's sad. The reality, it's sad. Because when God gives you every single penny you have in your pocket and in the bank account that you know of and the one that you're hiding from the IRS, when the God's giving you the bitcoins that you want and the ones that you already have, when the God is giving you the car, the house, the wife, the kids, the vision, the molecules, the stakes, the synagogues, the community, and the freedom, you have to be a Jew. For the first time in history, you're allowed to be a Jew without people killing you. For the first time in history, the Christians are pretending to be Jews. They call it Messianic Judaism, or Jews for Jesus. Machshimah v'zichram. For the first time in history, if you want to learn a book, any book, Sefer Kodesh, all you got to do is press a button. And it arrives on your phone. Or it arrives at your house, whichever one you want. If you just rewind 100 years, we're not even talking about 1,000 years ago, Moshe Rabbeinu and his brother. No, we're talking about 100 years ago. If you wanted to learn a Sefer Kodesh, you had to leave the city to go to some rich guy's house that has the book and stay at his house, like as a guest, for a month, 2 months, 3 months, however long it took you to finish the book. That's how you learn Torah. For 3,300 years, that's how we learned Torah. We went to different towns. We left the family, we left the kids, we left the work, we left everything. Why? There's a book this guy has 3 weeks away. There's a book this guy has 6 months away. I have to walk 6 months, go learn the book for 2 months, and come back 6 months. How we're going to eat? That's your problem. I have to go learn Torah. I left you a cow, milk it. I left you a cow and 2 kids. Use the kids to milk the cow. Finished. That's how we learned Torah, Rabotai. And the wife was 100% on board. She says, you're right. I have 2 kids, they're going to milk the cow. Baruch Hashem, we have the cow. You see some of the letters that the Chachamim sent to their wives, they'd ask them, how are you? How are the kids? How's the cow? The must ask them, how's the cow doing? It's like asking, how's the business? How's the cow doing? Well, if I have the cow, if the cow's doing good, I know you're still eating. If the cow's not doing good, I got to come back home. How's the cow doing? Meaning he went somewhere for 6 months to go learn a book. And there was no problem. Why? He was chasing the emet. He was chasing the truth, even if the truth cost him 6 months of his life, or a year of his life, or 7 years of his life. It didn't make a difference. Why? Vayishma Yitro. He heard the truth like Yitro. I'm going to chase the truth. We have Torah in our pockets. And still you have to beg people to come. Still you have to beg people to keep Shabbat. Still you have to ask the question twice, how much does God actually worth in your mind? Why? Because we don't know. We don't know the truth yet. Now, Rabotai, once you start learning the truth, you realize that the truth is very, very different than what we've learned our entire life. First and foremost, When I started learning Torah, I realized that the Torah is not optional. It's not optional. Whether you're a Jew or you're not a Jew, it's not optional. The Rambam says in Ilchot Melachim that a non-Jew that keeps the laws of Noach, the 7 laws of Noach, plus all of the ethical laws of the Torah, like honoring your parents and so on, which is somewhere around 50 different mitzvot. If he fulfills those mitzvot because God said so, then he's considered Chasdei Umot HaOlam, one of the wise people among the nations, and he has Olam Haba. But if this same goy, the same non-Jew, keeps the same laws, he doesn't murder, he doesn't steal, he doesn't eat an animal while it's still alive, he has a court system, and all the things, all of the mitzvot, he keeps them, but not because God said so. Simply because it makes sense. It makes sense not to murder. It makes sense not to steal. It makes sense not to be a homosexual if you're normal. It makes sense to do all these things. It makes sense. Makes sense. So he keeps it because it makes sense. The Rambam says, not only does he not have Olam Haba, but he's actually considered Tipshei Umot HaOlam, one of the stupidest people in the world. Why? You did all the work and you're not going to get paid for it. You kept all the mitzvot, but for the wrong reason. You kept them because you like it. You kept it because it makes sense to you. For that, there's no reward. Which means that the Torah is not optional for the Goyim. They have to follow it. And whoever doesn't will be punished. Kal v'chomer, needless to say for Am Yisrael. Needless to say for Am Yisrael. The Rambam says in Ilchot Shabbat 900 years ago, chapter 30, last halacha, a Jew that violates Shabbat, a Jew that drives on Shabbat, smokes a cigarette on Shabbat, watches television Shabbat, plays with their phone on Shabbat, works on Shabbat, plays with money on Shabbat, talks about money on Shabbat, unless it has to do with a mitzvah, he's not allowed. Meaning if he's talking about some real estate deal that he's going to invest in, or invested in, or stock market, or Bitcoin, or Schmidt coin, or this coin, or that coin, or everything's going to go to zero anyway, if he talks about any of that stuff, he's a Mechalel Shabbat. According to the Rambam, he's considered 100% an idol worshiper. Meaning, if he comes to your house for Kiddush, and you have a yain de lo muvushal, you have an uncooked wine, one of the expensive wines. Usually they're more than $20. And you open the wine for Kiddush, and he wants to see what kind of wine you get. So he takes the wine, he picks it up. You know, just people pick up the wine, they want to see what's behind it, what kind of wine, how much alcohol, is it good, is it bad, and so on. They're like, everybody became a wine connoisseur these days. They drank 3 cups of wine at the club, they think they're wine connoisseurs. But anyway, he looks at the wine. If the wine is open, the wine at that point is no longer allowed for you to drink. Why? An idol worshiper touched that wine. But he's a Jew. He's my brother. He's my cousin. He's my sister. He's my whatever he is. Doesn't make a difference. If he's a Mechalel Shabbat, according to Hashem, not to me, according to Hashem, he's considered 100% an idol worshiper. What else does it mean? One of the worst things that you can possibly do in Judaism, to such an extent that the Gemara says if you do this, not only do you not have Olam Haba, but you have eternal suffering to go along with it too. What is it? Something simple. Charging another Jew interest on loans. One of your friends came to you, says, listen, I have a business, I have a this, I have a that, whatever they have, I need a loan. How much? I need $10,000. You happen to have the money. He's like, oh, no problem, $10,000, only 36% interest, only. Only 36% interest monthly. Only. Good deal. The guy's desperate, misken. You charge him interest. What is he going to do? He's going to say, no, you're the only guy that's willing to lend him any money. Even if you charge him 1% interest, it's the same thing. I'm just exaggerating a little bit to give you guys a little bit of pleasure from the joke. The point is that you charge him interest. The Gemara says that person that charges interest officially lost their Olam Haba. They have to return the interest in order to do tshuva. Why? They charged another Jew interest. Now, what if that Jew is a Mechalel Shabbat? What if that Jew violate Shabbat, then Rav Ovadia, Alav Shalom, gives the chidush of a lifetime. It's not really chidush though. Why? The Rambam also said it. What did he say? The Mechalel Shabbat is also an idol worshipper. Which means, idol worshipper, you could charge him interest as much as you want. Meaning, if the Jew is a Mechalel Shabbat, charge him interest as much as you want. He's not considered Jewish. But we still don't recommend it. Why don't we recommend it? Because what if he does tshuva? If he does tshuva, it's safek, meaning it's a possibility you may have to give him back the interest because he did tshuva now. Point being, Rabotai, it's a serious problem in Hashem's eyes to be an idol worshipper, which is, in his eyes, equivalent to Mechalel Shabbat. So we all understand that Yitro left idolatry. But we, on the other hand, are not willing to leave it. And the reason why is because the examples that we have today sometimes are very confusing. I remember one of the things that always bothered me when I would look at religious people is that I could never tell who's married and who's not married on the women, because I always heard, at least when I grew up in Israel, who was Sephardi. So I remember seeing my aunt, which was, a few cousins and aunts that I have that were religious, and you would know that they're religious because they cover their hair. They cover their hair with a mitpachat or something like that, or a hat. Now, for the first time in my life, I'm sure it happened in Israel when I was a kid, I just never noticed it, but for the first time I started noticing it in America, is that the religious people, for the most part, don't wear mitpachat. So you can never tell who's married and who's not. Why? Because either they don't cover anything at all, or they cover it with a wig, which, in my eyes, was like a joke. As a secular person, forget religious. As a secular person, I'm like, what do you mean? So you cover hair with your hair? That's better than your original hair? And that makes you religious? And this would be one of the excuses I would use not to be religious. I'm like, they're idiots. There's something wrong with them. You're covering hair with hair, and that's what makes you religious? Like, you look like the girl I just saw in the magazine, and that's going to make you kedusha? You're holy because of this? This doesn't make any sense. Your religion doesn't make any sense. I'm staying secular. Because at least I'm using my logic in my eyes. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. At least I'm not lying to myself. But again, I didn't know the whole intricate parts of it and so on. But it still never made sense to me. So once I became religious, I actually started looking into this because I started noticing a lot more people. I started moving to a Jewish community, and I started seeing this is not one or two or three women. This is pretty much the majority of American Judaism. It's a majority of Judaism in general today, religious Jews. So I started looking into it, and I saw that this has been a machloket for over 400 years. It's been a debate between the Chachamim for 400 years of whether you are allowed to wear a wig or you're not allowed to wig, because according to the vast majority of the sages throughout history for the last 2,000 years, you're not allowed to wear a wig because it's not modest. Even though the wigs they were talking about look like your broom. You were able to tell that it was not real hair. Nonetheless, still they said that showing hair for women is not allowed. It's not a modest thing. The whole point is to cover your hair and not hair with hair. And that was the debate that already started 2,000 years ago. Yonatan ben Uziel, in the Gemara Masechet Shabbat, and several other places. Sedel. Now, about 400 years ago, one posek came out and said, listen, I actually think that this is not what the Gemara means, and you can wear wigs, and some people followed him, but it became one community, and another community, and another community, and everyone started taking what he said and exaggerated a little bit more, and exaggerated a little bit more, and exaggerated a little bit more. Fast forward 400 years, today, women wear the same wigs that the movie stars wear, Hashem Yachem, and you can't tell who's married, you can't tell who's single, you can't tell if it's her real hair, you can't tell if it's not her real hair. You actually ask the women that are getting wigs, what's the point of the wig? Like, what's the ideal wig? What's the best wig? It says the one that looks the most real. I'm like, isn't that defeat the purpose? But this has been a debate for 400 years. Who am I to get in the way of this debate? Bigger chachamim than I could ever be have debated it, and so on and so forth. So little old me, I said, listen, there's something wrong with this picture. Because I heard when I was in the business world, I did research on a lot of different businesses. That's what I did. I was an expert in research. I would find industries, companies. That's what I did for almost 20 years. That's how I made all the money. It wasn't because I got lucky on something. It was I did research on certain things, got in before other people realized it was good, and that's how we made money. So that was my expertise. At some point in my life, I did research on different industries, and I came across the hair industry. And I found out that most wigs come from India. And somehow this rang a bell, Siyata Dishmaya, obviously it all comes from Hashem. And I'm like, wait a minute. I remember from the business world that wigs come from India. And India, they don't do it like a business. It's a way of idol worship. Meaning that the Hindus, they have different idols. They have over 80,000 religions there. A cow, a rat, tree, a motorcycle. I'm serious. They worship a motorcycle. It's a Harley Davidson. It's tied to a tree. There's a rat or a few rats. There's a few cows. A cow crosses the street. Everybody starts bowing. That's serious. It's just a joke. It's really serious. They worship these things. I actually have pictures of this. I didn't believe it the first time either. But they worship everything that moves, everything that doesn't move. So now, I started seeing, wait a minute, this whole wig thing, all of the hair is coming from there. Now, according to Halacha, you're not allowed to benefit from idol worship in any way, shape, or form. The only mitzvah that you can do with idol worship is burn it, destroy it. The only thing you're allowed to do with it. You're not allowed to sell it, you're not allowed to eat it, you're not allowed to wear it, you're not allowed to do anything with it other than to destroy it. That's it. That's the only mitzvah you have. The first thing that Yeshua ben Nun, the Gdol Ador after Moshe Rabbeinu, was commanded to do after they got to Eretz Yisrael, Hashem Yitbarach told them, go burn all of the Asher trees. What the trees do, miskinim? What they call you a name? What they do? Hashem says, oh, people worship them. Yeah, they worship them. That's not their fault the idiots worship the tree. It doesn't make a difference. Their fault, not their fault, it makes no difference. Once something was used for idolatry, it's always idolatry. There's never undoing it. Once it's used for idolatry, the only mitzvah is to destroy it. Destroy all of these fruit trees, all of these non-fruit trees, all of these trees, anything that was worshipped, destroy it. Why? Because idolatry is considered to'evat Hashem. In English, disgusting to Hashem. Why? Because you have replaced the source of all water with broken cisterns. You exchanged everything with nothing. So now, Rabotai, I came out and I started doing research and I realized that it's not just a small market. It's a multi-billion-dollar market. The fashion industry in general is $520 billion a year. Wigs are somewhere between 10 to 25 billion. No one really knows. Either way, it's a really big market. Now, if you buy a wig, according to some serious research that we did, which again, like I told you, was almost 20 years of my expertise. So it wasn't like a new guy at this. This is what I did. If I know something, it's that. It's not Torah. Torah, I'm trying to know. This, I definitely know. If you buy a wig, it's not 99%, it's 100%. 100% coming from Avodah Zarah. 100%. Unless you bought it directly from 3 people's heads. You took, because every wig is 3 women. Every wig is 3 different heads. It's not one head replaces one head. Every wig is 3 heads. So unless you saw 3 women you shaved their head yourself. Oh, thank you very much, Samantha. Thank you very much, Wilma. And thank you very much, whoever you are. Fine, thank you very much. Take the wig, you put it back in your head. Unless you did that, which is unrealistic. The wig that you're buying from any store, I could say kosher, non-kosher, taref, not taref, it's Avodah Zarah. Why? Because no other market in the world can supply the wigs for the market.
What if it's synthetic wig?
Unfortunately, with synthetic wigs is that research found out that an average of 3 to 10% of the synthetic wigs are actually real hair. Meaning that even the synthetic wig is not really synthetic. And the reason why is because there's so many men that worship idols in India that over 20 million of them donate their hair a year. 20 million of them donate their hair a year. Now, wigs, for the most part, are long. That's the women. So what are you going to do with all these men that are donating their hair? You have to do something with them. No one's going to buy a wig with short hair, really, most of the time. You're not going to buy a wig with a crew cut. So what are you going to do with this hair? So they put it in synthetic wigs. They put it in food. It's called L-cysteine. It's in your bread sometimes. They put it in medicine. All of this short hair is put in different places. Now, it's to such an extent, there's such a surplus. There's so much actual real hair from India that it's actually cheaper than synthetic wigs to the manufacturer. And therefore, they fill in the synthetic wig with some real hair. So now, the problem of having over 127 poskim throughout all of generations, saying that it's not allowed to wear a wig regardless of whether it's avodah zarah or not, is already a problem of its own. But now, because of modesty, it's not modest to wear a wig. But now you have a serious problem. Now you have a fact that if you're wearing a wig, it's statistically impossible for it to be a kosher wig. Now what about all these kosher wigs? Now you go to most religious neighborhoods, they have a kosher stamp. A kosher stamp on the wig. This is the joke of a lifetime. This is the biggest lie in Jewish history. And the reason why is because it's impossible to kosher a wig. Not just practically. It's literally impossible. And the reason why is because when you buy kosher meat, that means that someone that's a Jew, that's a Shomer Shabbat Jew, has watched the meat from beginning to end. From the time he was a cow, and he was slaughtered, no bones were broken, there was no machalot, it wasn't diseased or something like that. It was slaughtered. Then somebody else, or maybe the same person, cut the pieces, salted the meat, made sure all the blood came out, all the way till it got to your butcher. And it looks like it's blood, but it's really not blood, it's just the coloring. And so on and so forth, until it got to your table, someone watched it. Someone watched that it stayed kosher along the way. At least that's the way kosher meat is. Same thing with the Sefer Torah. Somebody writes a Sefer Torah. When they bring it to the United States, they send it with a few letters missing. Because a Sefer Torah, if it falls, everybody has to fast. So when they send Sifrei Torah in an airplane, it's an incomplete Sefer Torah. Because when it's incomplete, it's not considered a Sefer Torah. So they could travel with it. The point being is, somebody has to be with the Sefer Torah. Somebody has to watch it along the way. From the day they put the first letter, to the day that you read it over here for Parashat Shavua. Someone has to watch it. With kosher wigs, it's impossible. And the reason why is because the people that are donating their hair at the temple, and the people that are selling the wigs, are two completely different worlds. They're being donated in India for free, because that's their mitzvah, for their avodah zarah. Now the people that are donating it, they don't know it's being sold, and they don't care it's being sold. To them, it's like they're worshiping an idol. To them, that's what they do. That's their mitzvah. That's their whole life. They've been waiting 10 years for this. It's like somebody, le'avdi, like somebody finishing the shas after 7 years. For them, it's they grew their hair for 7 years, now they're donating it. So now they donated it. That temple accumulates the hair every single day. 800, 900, 1,000 kilos. Every single day. He sends it to a different factory to clean the hair. We watch through this whole process. Clean the hair. It's a different place with low labor costs. They clean the hair from the lice and diseases and so on and so forth. Then they send it either to China or to Brazil or some other country in Europe, either Italy or so on, to reprocess it. And every time it changes country, it changes stamp. So it doesn't say made in India. It says made in China, made in Italy, made in Brazil, made in Jehannam, made in all these different places. Made in all these different places. It never says made in India. Now, I actually, during the research, I asked a few people from Brazil, because most of the wigs today, they say they're Brazilian. So I asked them, do so many people donate their hair in Brazil? The guy started laughing at me. I said, why are you laughing? It's not funny. It's a real serious question. He goes, the Brazilian people would rather die from starvation than sell their hair. It's just their nature. They like their beauty. They're not going to sell their hair. So this made me question things even more. So where's the hair coming from? The hair is coming from that originally when the Indians realized that their business could become as big as it is, they started making big deals. And they happened to make big deals with 3 major businessmen in Brazil. And that's why most of the wigs come from Brazil. But either way, it's not Brazilian wigs. It's not Italian wigs. There's no Italians walking around with a bald head. There's no Italian women walking around with a bald head. There's no English women walking with a bald head. There's no French women walking around with a bald head, unless they have cancer. Other than that, they're not walking around with a bald head, Rabotai. It's all coming from India. Because even if somebody else wanted to donate their hair, like say in Cambodia or in China or any of these other places, it's still not enough to supply the market. Because anyone else in any other country would sell the hair. That would already mark up the price of the hair. That would already make it from free to whatever it costs. Meaning the price of an average wig would go from $1,000 to $10,000. Because everybody has to make money along the way. So the reason why wigs are still you're able to afford them, or people are able to afford them, is because the original cost is free. And there's a lot of it. There's a lot of it. So now when I started realizing this, I realized that there's no such thing as from birth anymore, Abutai. There's no such thing as religious from birth anymore. The reality is that what Parashat Yitro is telling us here is that Avodah Zarah is existent everywhere. In the secular world, most of us have a justification to be secular. What is it? Money. We're chasing money. Once I have money, then I'll do tshuva. Once I have a big house, then I'll stop working on Shabbat. Once I do this, then this. We have conditions for Hashem. Once you give me money, then I'll do whatever you want, Hashem. We give Hashem a business proposition. You give me money, I'll do what you want. In the secular world, that's how we justify it. That's our Avodah Zarah, is kesef. In a religious world, it's the opposite. In a religious world, it's not just kesef. In a religious world, we justify it with competing with kesef. Competing with the Joneses, competing with the people that have kesef, competing with Hollywood, competing with everyone else. But even after you tell them, listen, it's Avodah Zarah what you have on your head, all of the tefillin, all the tehillim, all of the mitzvot that you're doing, it's not counting. Why? Because you have Avodah Zarah on your head. You have Avodah Zarah on your head. You can't go pray to God while you brought a competition too. You can't pray to God when you brought a competition also. You can't read Tehillim, Hashem help me, Hashem help me, Hashem help me. He's like, you know what, maybe I'll help your Avodah Zarah on your head. I'll help first. I'll find it a new home. And this, Rabotai, is why I always say there's no such thing as from birth anymore. So, when someone asks you, what's the price that you're willing to pay for Hashem, really the answer should be priceless. The answer should be priceless. It should be anything. It should be literally anything. Anything and everything. Now, to get to that point, there's only one way. Well, actually, there's 2 ways. One way is you learn a lot of Torah and you start understanding what the significance is of being a Jew. At the very least, be as proud of a Jew as the Muslim is to be a Muslim. Just like he's willing to pray in the middle of the street, so should you. Don't be so shy when you're at the airport next time and pray all the way in the corner. Pray at your seat right next to everybody. Anyone asks you any questions, just say, this is what the Mashiach is going to look like. Don't worry. He's not going to be a Muslim and he's not going to be a Christian. This is what he's going to look like with the tefillin and everything. Get used to it. Be proud. You have the truth, not them. Don't pray in the corner. Pray at your seat. Just like the Muslim prays in the middle of Broadway. Next time somebody asks you, what do you want to eat? Just say kosher. Why? Because that's what God said. Next time somebody asks you, when you go on a vacation, say on Shabbat. God gave me a vacation every week. Next time somebody asks you, what do you want to do? Say, I want to learn. Why? Because that's the point of you being here in the world. The Gemara in Masechet Chagigah says, if you did not find a reason to sanctify Hashem's name every day, there was no point for you to exist. If you didn't look for a reason to do a Kiddush Hashem, look for it. Didn't necessarily succeed every day, but at least try to sanctify Hashem's name every day, there was no point for you to come to the world. The easiest way to sanctify His name is by simply saying it. Say Baruch Hashem before you start every sentence. Say Be'ezrat Hashem before you finish anything. Learn what Hashem really is every single day with your Rav, with your Keilah, with your friends. Instead of watching baseball and football and shmutball and all the shtuyot that people waste their life on, at least find out what Torah really means. What's the point of being a Jew? Either be a Jew or go be a goy. But at least pick a side. Don't call yourself a Jew if you don't want to be a Jew. And that's exactly what Hashem says to the prophet. You want to do tshuva? Do tshuva. If you don't, go worship the idols. He actually says this in the Torah. Go worship the idols then. Stop being a 50% Jew. I'm Israeli and I'm religious in my heart. I'm religious in my heart. I'm like religious like twice a year on Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah and whenever my friends tell me to come. I'm religious, you know, bat mitzvah, bar mitzvah, this mitzvah, that mitzvah, I do those. I'm machmir in those. I go to all the parties. Stop being a 50% Jew. There's basic level mitzvot. We're not talking about chumrot. We're not talking about you have to start becoming a rabbi. You have to start speaking publicly. You have to start learning Torah from day and night. Leave your job, leave everything, and go to the desert. Be like the Rambam. I'm not telling you that. There's basic level mitzvot we're all obligated to do. It all starts with attaining these basic level principles that he told us to get. First one, be a ish chayil. Ish chayil doesn't mean go be successful. No one cares about your money, especially God. Why? He says to the prophet, Liya kesef liya za'av naum Hashem tzevaot. Hashem says, mine is the money, mine is the gold. Says Hashem, God of legions. He says, everything is mine. You think it's your bank account? It's my bank account. Look at your own. I gave him 20 million, then I took it back. What makes you think I'm not going to take yours? A guy by the name of Ike Batista was the 7th richest man in the world just a few years ago. $37 billion. Today, he has a negative net worth. He has zero. Nothing. He can't pay the rent. They took away his car. $37 billion. Just a few years ago. You're working for a lot of money. Maybe Hashem doesn't want you to have it. What does he want you to have? He wants you to be an ish chayil. What's an ish chayil? Know some Torah. Know some basic purpose of why you're in this world. Second thing is, attain yirat shamayim. Be afraid of Hashem. Shlomo HaMelech, the smartest man of all time, says, Ashrei Adam mefachet tamid. Praiseworthy is the man that's always scared. What is he scared of, this guy? What is he scared of? He's scared of being punished. He's scared of Gehenom. He's scared of Hashem not liking him. He's scared of Hashem calling him an enemy. Who's an enemy? According to the very same parasha, same one, Rabotai, we still haven't gone to the rest of the Torah. Just as parasha, he tells us exactly who are these enemies. He says, Ohavai v'shomrei mitzvotai. Those lovers of mine, they keep my mitzvot. Who's the haters? Those sonai. Sonai is haters. Who are they? The ones that don't keep mitzvot. Same parasha. Same parasha Torah. Matan Torah, he already tells us everything. He already tells us everything. So already over here, we already know where we're at. Whether you're in hot water or not, only you know. I don't know if you keep, you don't keep, that's your problem. The reality is that you can attain this very easily. This yirat shamayim is very easy to get. It's called learn musar. Learn musar. Musar is character development. Now you can learn alachot, like the laws and so on, from here till next year. It's not going to help you with yirat shamayim. It's not going to help you to fear Hashem. Why? All you're going to learn to do is how to do stuff. But it's still not going to give you a reason to do it. It's still not going to give you a reason to change your character. It's still not going to give you a reason to be generous, to be less angry, to be a better person, to be a decent human being. There are people that know a lot of alachot, they know a lot of laws, but they're still menuvalim. Still despicable people. The Ramban calls them naval birshut Torah. Despicable with the permission from the Torah. They learn a lot of halachot, but they don't have any midot. They start making their own rules. We don't want people to make their own rules. We have rules from Hashem. That's all we need. So yirat shamayim is learning musar on a daily basis. If you want to learn it from books, send me a text. I can recommend you a handful of books. Each one of them can change your life. Every page can change your life. If you're not ready for books, watch my musar series. Same price as this lecture, free. We made it easy for you. All you got to do is press a button. Press a button and just watch. That's it. Press a button and the book will arrive. Press a button and the lecture will arrive. To learn Torah, you don't have to travel 6 months like the guys from 100 years ago. That's the kitrug. That's the case against us. It's easier than ever to be a Jew. No one's killing you because of it. No one's persecuting you because of it. No one's even making fun of you because of it. And the reality is, if they do, you can sue them. It's easier than ever to be a Jew, but that's why the punishment is endless. If we're not. That's why the punishment is so bad. Because Hashem says, I made it so easy for you to be a Jew before the Mashiach comes. And you still chose not to do it. What do you want me to save you anyway? Are you taking it for a joke? What do you think, he's a friar? What do you think Hashem is? One of your boys from the bar? You can treat him, and when you want to come, when you want to invite him, you invite him. You don't want to invite him, you don't invite him. And that, Rabotai, allows us to get to the next point, which is an Ishamet. Ishamet doesn't only mean stand up for the truth. Ishamet also means admit the truth. You heard it, you saw it, the end. Stop with the arguments, the debates for no reason. Oh, but what if this, but what if that? Enough. There's more than enough proofs to know God exists. All you got to do is look in the mirror. All you got to do is look at every single person in here. You're all miracles. Not just the fact that you're a human being and that the technology that's in your eye is more advanced than all of the cameras that ever existed in the entire world. Not just that. Not just the fact that your brain of the smartest guy and the stupidest guy makes no difference. The brain of the stupidest guy on earth has more wiring than all of the telecom companies in the entire planet that ever existed. One brain. Not only is that a miracle, it's actually a miracle that you're a Jew. That's the biggest miracle. And the reason why, Rabotai, is because there are 8 billion people in the world. 8 billion people in the world. Out of the 8 billion, there's somewhere around 20 million that are Jews. Now the secret is, there really isn't 8 billion people in the world. It's something like 7.96 billion. Or 7.92 billion. Meaning that they're rounding off 40 to 80 million to make it a round number of 8 billion. Which means that the Jews are a rounding error and not even. But yet, every single day, you hear about a Jew in the news. Every single day, you hear about a Jew's story. Every single day, one of us is somewhere and everyone knows. In reality, you should never hear about a Jew at all. There's so few of us in comparison to the 8 billion in the world of non-Jews, you should never hear about a Jew at all. The fact that you're a Jew is a miracle of itself. The fact that there's only 2 million to 3 million out of the 20 million that actually keep Shabbat is a bigger miracle. Meaning that you, if you keep Shabbat, or you're going to start keeping Shabbat this Shabbat, you become a statistical anomaly. Meaning something impossible. The 20 million is already impossible. The actual 2 or 3 million that keep Shabbat is even more impossible. And for those 2 or 3 million that keep Shabbat, that's what Hashem keeps the world for. The 8 billion exists for the 3 billion. That's the reality. That's the reality. That's what He gave Matan Torah for. When you hear that truth, when you hear that emet, and it doesn't shake you, you should double check if you're Jewish. You should ask your mom, am I really Jewish? Or do you adopt me from the neighbors? If it doesn't shake you, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. If it doesn't move you, at least not necessarily do complete, but at least do something. I at least got to double check. I got to follow up. I have more questions. Something. If you came and left the same way, nothing changed, there's something wrong. Now, if you do all of these things, you could arrive to be someone that's soneh vatzah. But soneh vatzah is not necessarily only someone that hates money. Soneh vatzah is someone that hates the existence of this world. And the reason why is because he's doing everything possible to prepare for Olam Haba. Because that world is eternal. This one's temporary. 20 years, 50 years, 70 years, whatever it is, however long we're going to be here. It's temporary. Everyone knows. It's no big secret. It has nothing to do with religion. Everyone dies at some point. My cousin died 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. He was 23 years old. His father has $100 million. $100 million. How much is the $100 million worth right now with his younger son dead? Absolutely zero. Why? He has no life anymore. Why? Because his son died. He was on a scooter on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. He thought that this is what you're supposed to do on Rosh Hashanah. Be on a scooter. Did he think he was going to die that day at 23? No. He didn't think he was going to die. He thought like everybody else, I'm going to live to 1,000,000. Or at least 120. At least 120, but maybe longer. Because they're going to make more medicine and people are going to live forever. He didn't think he was going to die. None of us think we're going to die. That's why Warren Buffett and Kirk Kerkorian and all these billionaires still go to work even though they're 90 years old. They're all convinced they're going to live forever. The reality is, Rabotai, you're not. We don't know how much time we have. And that's why the Rambam says in Ilchot Tshuva, there's only one way to do kiruv. There's only one way to get people to do tshuva. And this is actually an halacha. This is not some opinion. This is not some, oh, maybe yes, maybe no. It says the following. In Ilchot Tshuva, chapter 10, halacha 5. It says, therefore, when one teaches children, women, and the most common people, one should teach them to serve out of fear of God in order to receive a reward. And the next halacha, it says, it's well known and clear that to love Hashem is not possible within a man's heart until he becomes obsessed with it at all times. And none of this is possible without fear first. So Rabotai Karim, some of the things that I said may be funny. Some of the things that I said may be entertaining. Some of the things that I said may be scary. This is the way you do tshuva. All the people that came to my office for 15 years. 15 years they came to my office, not one single person helped me do tshuva. Now their math is the same as many other rabbis. It's your problem to do tshuva. I'll just help them do tzedakah and hopefully they'll do tshuva on their own. Hopefully he'll do it on his own. Hopefully he'll do it on his own. I'm not going to tell him what to do. I'm not going to tell him what to do. Maybe he's not going to listen. But the reality is I know a little bit of math and I know that everything has a 50-50 chance in most cases. 50-50 chance. Meaning if they would have told me the truth, there's at least a 50% chance that I would have listened. And a 50% chance that I would have thrown them out. 50-50. But they decide to make the choice for me. They decide that I'm not going to listen. So better off not telling me. Because if they tell me, maybe they're going to lose money. They decided to take away my olam haba. Now let's just look at their math. They assume that eventually I'm going to do tshuva on my own or something or this or that. So how is this supposed to work? Let's see if instead of coming to my office 3 times a week, they only came once. They only came once a week. And instead of 15 years, it's only 10 years. So you do the math. Once a week, 52 weeks, times 10 years is 520 times. That means you had 520 times, 520 opportunities to tell me one mitzvah that I'm supposed to do. Keep Shabbat. One mitzvah, marry a Jew. One mitzvah, keep kosher. One mitzvah, learn Torah. One mitzvah, say Shema Yisrael. Anything. They never did. And that choice, Rabotai, almost took away my olam haba. I don't want to repeat their mistake. So that's why I'm telling you what I'm telling you. And that's why some of my shiurim are similar to this. Some of them are much scarier, some of them are much nicer. Either way, it's all over the place. But it's all full of verses. It's all full of sources. It's very little of my own opinion. Even my own opinion has some Torah in it. And the reason why is because I don't know what you know, and I don't know what you don't know. What I do know for sure is everybody has to do tshuva. Religious, not religious, everyone has something to do. Everyone has something to do. Some people it's with wigs, some people it's with money. Some people it's with character traits, some people it's with Shabbat. Different people, different things. But the reality is, everyone has a lot of work to do. And the one last thing I'm going to tell you is, Rabotai, is that the same Rambam that told us all of these alachot, that told us all of these major things, he also said that everything that you're going to read about in Pesach, about all the makot, all of the terrible things that Hashem did to the Egyptians, it's going to happen again. Before Mashiach comes, the same thing is going to happen again. Only this time it's going to be magnified. So just like there was 3 days of darkness, when Hashem Yitbarach killed the Egyptians and many Jews, unfortunately, at the end of times before the Mashiach comes, it's going to be 15 days of darkness. And the reason why is because he has to kill a lot more people. If we do tshuva, we have nothing to worry about. If we don't do tshuva, we have everything to worry about. Any questions? Kabut.
A woman who has cancer and she has no hair, what does she put on?
Mitpachat. A woman that has cancer, the question was, a woman that has cancer, what should they wear? A mitpachat or kova? Either a scarf or a hat. A woman is supposed to cover her head with a hat or a scarf. Not hair with hair. Because like I said, there's two reasons. Number one, she's not allowed to cover because it's not modest to show hair, even if it's not really her hair. And number two, because of the avodah zarah that we mentioned. Next question. On the women's section, I think somebody had a question. You had?
How do you get Russian wigs?
How do you ship Russian wigs? The Russian wigs that, the main source of Russian wigs is they get it from the jails, the women jails. No, the women jails in Russia, there's a custom in Russia to go to the women jails, beat them up senseless, and then shave their head and then sell the wigs. That's what they do in Russia. This was also part of our research. Now the problem with the Russian wigs is because, number one, it's unethical. It's unethical to do such a thing, to take something against somebody's will. It's considered geze, it's considered stealing. But even more so, the Russian wigs are not really the market. 99.999% of all the hair in the market today is not coming from Russia, even if it's blonde, even if it's blue, even if it's green, even if it's anything. And the reason why is because in all of these places, whether it's Cambodia, Brazil, Russia, everywhere else, someone is selling the hair. Someone is selling the hair, and it's relatively small numbers. So let's say, for example, even if you go to all the Russian jails, you shave everybody's head. Okay, so let's say you shaved heads, I don't know, of 100,000 women. You have now destroyed the market for the next 10 years. Why? It takes time for the hair to grow. So now you've taken all of the hair you could possibly take from Russia for the next 10 years. But that only supplied, those 100,000 people, only 30,000 wigs at best. 30,000 wigs is one small little market. It's one small little neighborhood. So meaning that even if all the Russian wigs were great and kosher and it was allowed to beat people up and take their hair and everything else, it still wouldn't be enough to supply the market. Because the market is a $20 billion market. There are Jews and non-Jews buying these wigs, and the reality is that you can't verify where the hair has come from. And according to business research that Bloomberg did and many other research agencies did, according to, as well as us, is that the only place in the world that can supply the wigs is India. Because over there, 20 to 30 million people a year donate their hair. No other market comes close. No place else can make a market. Even Cambodia. A lot of people sell their hair in Cambodia for cheap, but that's, I don't know, maybe 3,000 people a year, 10,000 people a year. It's small numbers. No one in the world, not Russia, not Cambodia, not anywhere else, can provide such numbers in magnitude like India. So the reason why the wigs say made in different countries is because people know that if it says at this point, it used to be different. At this point, India has a bad name. India has a bad name. It's in essence, you say India, it's like in the old days. If it was good quality, it was Sony. If it was bad quality, it was Sony Guts. It's not really Sony. It's like Acer or something, but it's like inside it's Sony. In reality, it's a wig. If you say India, it already drops the price by 70%. So what do they say? No, it's not India. It's somewhere else. It's Brazil. It's somewhere in Europe. It's somewhere else. And how do they do it legally? Every single time in manufacturing, every time a wig goes to a different place, a different market, a different manufacturer, and they add one small little thing, it officially becomes made there. Even though originally the source is India, doesn't make a difference. That's with anything. That's just hair. It's with anything. So the only time you see made in India, made in China, made in anything is when it literally came from there. That's where it was sold from. But most of these wigs are not sold from India. The original byproduct is there, But the resellers are in Italy or in France and Germany and different other places like that, in America and so on. So it's the biggest lie in history, and unfortunately religious people are behind it. That's the saddest part. The saddest part of the kosher wig industry is that it's impossible to kosher them for two reasons. Number one, because, like I said, you have to follow the wig from step one. From the minute it was shaved, or it's called tonsured, until it actually becomes a wig. Now, it's impossible to follow it because they mix up all the hair in huge, giant jugs. All the hair. It's not like one hair is done, okay, we're finished, another one. One hair is done, oh, finished, another one. One hair is done, no. There's certain parts where they dye all of them, or they clean all of them, and they put all the hair together, and then they separate them by length. So the hair of Samantha, and Wilma, and Stacy, and Dynasty, and this tea, and that tea, everybody else is mixed together. So nobody else is the same. No one knows where the hair came from. No one knows if this one is an idol worship and this one is a tzadikah. No one knows anything. And then it's all mixed together as far as length. And now, so that's the first problem. The second problem is that there's only one place, there's only one institution in the entire world that koshers wigs. It's run by a person named Rabbi Gross. Now, unfortunately, either he's a liar or he's being lied to. I'm not really sure quite which one it is. Either way, there's a lot of lies. And the reason why is because he himself, when he was asked 14 years ago, do you believe that wigs out of India that come from Avodah Zarah need to be koshered? He says no. Why? He says, it's just not necessary. Yeah, but it's Avodah Zarah according to all the poskim. Because, it's not necessary. I don't believe in that. Meaning that he decided that to make his own law, and he doesn't believe that you need to kosher wigs. The problem is, if it was just his opinion, great. The problem is, he's the one that's koshering it. So the same guy that doesn't believe in kosher meat is your mashgiach. The same guy that's that believes that everyone should get divorced is the one that's doing your chuppah and kiddushin. The prosecutor's attorney is your best friend, and you're the defendant. Doesn't make any sense. He's on the other team. How are you being the kosher guy? That's the other reason, that the whole thing, the semantics behind everything behind it doesn't make any sense, and that's why it's purely business. That I know a little bit about. What people are willing to do for money, Rabotai, they're willing to kill, they're willing to cheat, they're willing to lie, they're willing to sell their mother, their father, and their neighbor, even if he didn't want to go for sale.
If a woman wants to cut her hair, but she's not up to putting a mikvah, you're saying it's better for her not to wear a wig than to wear a mikvah?
So there's three different options. One is you cover it with a scarf. With a scarf, there's a website called Rapunzel, WRAPUZEL.com. It's a woman that found very nice, creative ways, pretty ways to cover your hair with a scarf, and you don't necessarily need to look like you're from the 1920s. There are nice, creative ways. If you want to make the covering your hair beautiful, it's not only allowed, it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to make yourself look good with a mitzvah. It's magnifying a mitzvah, no different than a bachur buying a $2,000 pair of tefillin instead of the bar mitzvah boy tefillin for $400. Okay? You're magnifying the mitzvah. It's ma'aderet the mitzvah. You want to make your kisur rosh look pretty. There are pretty ways to make it. That's option number one. Option number two is wear a hat. There are 1.5 million different hats that are very good and very nice, and even many of the goyim and superstars wear them. Not just Jews wear hats. Go to the Queen of England. She wears a hat for, she's 300 years old. She's wearing a hat for 300 years already. Say, all these people wear hats. There's nothing wrong with wearing a hat. Wear a hat. It's not so bad. All these superstars, classy superstars at least, not the ones that are naked in every movie, they wear hats. It's a classy thing to do. It's not like such a bad thing. It's not like everyone's, ooh, she wears a hat. Oh, wow. Where'd she come from? It's wearing a hat. There's nothing wrong with wearing a hat. No one's going to ask you. That's two. Al tam ve'alech en balid vakeach. So that's second opinion. That's second. Third opinion, Rabbi again, alav shalom, said there is two type of women that are pturim, that don't need to wear kisur rosh. One is someone that's not married. If she's not married, if she's still single, she doesn't have to cover her hair. Even though the Rambam says you should, but either way, halacha is you don't have to. The other one is if she simply just doesn't have a head. If she doesn't have a head, she doesn't have to cover her head. If she doesn't have a head, she doesn't have to cover her head. Now, the fourth option, which is your real question, is what does she do if she's not ready for a mitpachat? She's not ready for a kova. She's not wearing for a hat, and she's not ready to chop off her head. So what does she do? The answer is do tshuva. That's the answer. The answer is do tshuva. Now, if you're going to ask me, should I benefit from idol worship or not benefit from idol worship? Obviously, the answer is don't benefit from idol, because there's already one sin of not covering your hair. It's a bigger sin to put idol worship on your head.
Are there different places in India that make? Because I heard Rav Belsky said that he did research also,
Okay.
and that he concluded that the wigs in India are not from idol worship.
Ken, with all due respect to Rav Belsky, kvodo bimkomo, he's wrong. Listen, I can't compete with any of the poskim as far as halacha. As far as poskim, the smallest of poskim, the smallest one you find anywhere in a little shuk, in a little market, it's bigger than me. Why? That's their life. Business, that's my thing. Business, research, thank you. Let him travel to Jehanam too and come back. I still know more business than him. He's Gdol Hador in Torah. I was Gdol Hador in business. I know business. I know what to do when it comes to business. I know research. I research markets, economies, products. This is one thing I know for sure. It's not something, I'm not talking about that he doesn't know. I'm telling you that I'm not blind. I went into a market. I saw what's in the market. I saw what my eyes saw. I saw what's there. I saw what the market is. I saw what the process is. I spoke to the vendors. I spoke to the product. I spoke to the people that are selling it. It's not like a guess. I'm not guessing this. It's not like an opinion. This is a reality.
Maybe there are two places, I'm saying.
No,
Even if there was
Some is
two
donated
places.
and some is not donated. And then it's a safek.
But that's the point. It's not safek. If there's 1% chance of idol worship, you're still not allowed to do it. If there's 1% chance of something being idol worship, you're not going to do it. How's the proof? Proof is not only Torah, it's also based on logic. Let's say, for example, all of you didn't drink all day. You were waiting for me to finish talking all day to drink. You didn't drink all day. So all of you are thirsty as can possibly be. And I said, okay, you know what? Guys, here's 100 cups of water. It's 100 cups of water. But before you jump, I just got to give you a little small, tiny disclosure. There's 100 cups of water. It's free. And if you want, I'll even give you $10 to drink the water. But it's one tiny little disclosure. For fun, I put a little poison in one of them. For fun. Who's first? Who's going to drink first? No one's going to drink. Why? No one's going to drink. Why? Why is no one going to drink? Because there's 1% chance that there's poison. No one is going to risk their physical life that's temporary for 1% poison. Why would you risk your neshama that's eternal for poison? Because again, the reality is, if you want to listen to what really happens after life, I have a shiur. It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. This is one of those shiurim I actually have to give a disclosure on. All of the other shiurim are for everyone. This one shiur is not for everyone. It should be, but it's really not. It's about Gehinom. I did a shiur about Gehinom. One thing that most people are not willing to do or even listen to. And there's actually a Masechet Gehinom. There's a tractate that talks specifically about Gehinom. So if you want to know the risk, if you're having a safek, should I put idol worship on my head or I shouldn't? Should I be a mechalel Shabbat or I shouldn't? Should I continue going out with the non-Jew or I shouldn't? Should I continue stealing or I shouldn't? If you're having that doubt and you've watched a lot of shiurim and nothing does it for you, go to that shiur. After that, you'll be here speaking to people. After you have all those doubts, you listen to that shiur, you'll do tshuva. Why? If you don't do tshuva, you're crazy. So you're patur from mitzvot anyway. If you don't do tshuva, if you actually know what happens in Olam HaEmet, you're patur for mitzvot. You don't have to do any mitzvot. Why? Because you're meshuga. And meshuga is patur for mitzvot. But that's the reality. I'm only here telling you the stuff that's a little scary and a lot of emet because I know the price. Baruch Hashem, I got Gehinom in this world. 7 years of it, Rabotai. 7 years. 7 years. You forgot, it's the beginning of the shiur, 2 hours ago. 7 years of Gehinom, screaming and yelling my lungs out every single day. A surgery every month. Imagine having a surgery every month. Imagine being in pain every single day. Imagining all your best friends becoming enemies. Imagine just one of them. What about all of them? What about the fact that at one point I had to walk around with a cane? I couldn't walk. Or at one point my feet and legs doubled in size for absolutely no reason. And I went to the ICU at Cornell University, top hospital in New York City. I lived in Manhattan. Went to top hospital. They told me, maybe it's the heat. I told them, maybe it's your brain. Why would my legs double in size because of the heat? No one knew what was wrong, Rabotai, until this day there was no diagnosis. There's no diagnosis. So how am I here? How am I here talking to you for 2 hours plus, and Baruch Hashem, I feel great. I'm standing and you're all sitting. How? Elohei HaKesef, Elohei HaZahav also says, Ani Adonai Rofecha. I am God, your healer. Same God. Same God. The God that's responsible for everything. Not Elohei HaKesef, Elohei HaZahav. Really, the God of all money. The God of Israel. The one that took us out of Egypt. The one that did everything for us. He's also our God, our healer. So, just like I get sick for absolutely no reason, I get cured for absolutely no reason. So I know what Gehenom looks like. In both places. It's both places. The reality is, tshuva is not really optional. We just think it is. It's nice to think that we have a choice, but we don't have much of a choice. Yeah?
That law you said about interest, does it apply to business as well?
If you're lending money to a Jew, if you own a business, or you do it privately, and you lend money to a Jew, if that Jew is a Shomer Shabbat, you have a serious problem. Which means that a lot of these new short-term lending businesses that are founded by Jews, and many of them are religious Jews, are very problematic businesses. They're very, very problematic businesses. I know this is the new thing, that a lot of Jewish guys are going into this business, similar to how electronics was 20 years ago, similar to how real estate was 15 years ago and 10 years ago, similar to how mortgages was about 10 years ago. Every decade, every 5 years, Jews find a new business. So now there's this new thing of short-term lending. They lend people that are desperate, money for high interest, 25% interest or above, sometimes less, sometimes more. And they don't care if the guy is Jewish or not Jewish. Now, the problem is, if the money is coming from a Jew, and it's going to a Jew, you have a very, very serious problem. If the money is coming from a bank, and it's going to a Jew, it's less of a problem, but it's still a problem. Why? Because you as the broker still benefited out of it. It's not as big of a problem, but it's still a problem. If you ask me, you should leave the business if you're in it. Whoever is in it should leave it. If you ask me a second question, why are religious people the one that are actually running these businesses? Because they have the God of money, not the God of Am Yisrael. They believe in money more than they believe in God. In the dollar bill it says what? In God we trust. Unfortunately for them, they believe the dollar is God. That's it. That's all it means. So it's a problematic business.
What about the banks in Israel?
Banks in Israel, banks in general, are owned by shareholders. So it's not a single person that owns the bank, and for the most part, shareholders are mostly non-Jews. So that's how most of the people use that heter, that leniency, since most of the owners of the bank, most of the owners of the shareholders are unknown, and they're usually goyim, because the vast majority of the world is goyim. Then you're allowed, it gives the heter a leniency for people to take a mortgage or a bank loan and so on. But there are some people like my Rav Ephraim, who refuses to take a loan at all from any bank, because even if there's a 1% chance that it's majority Jew or not, or something like that, he's not willing to take it. But that's a chumrah. It's not al-chai, you're allowed to take a loan from a bank. But again, the short-term lending business is not quite that. Usually there's one guy that's funding it in many cases, that's a Jew, and so on. Yeah.
There's a saying that Judaism is supposed to bring families together, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, it's actually separating them.
How?
For example, like Baharian Jews, they used to more like communism. They used to not keep Shabbat, not keeping kosher.
Okay.
I think if you tell them to keep kosher, keep Shabbat, it's a hassle for them. It's too much for them. And then if someone in the family starts keeping Shabbat, you like a burden. It's too much. It's too much for them. So how is it that you're going to the truth, but then when you're in the process, it's just separating more and more people.
Okay, so you ever traveled on a plane before?
Yeah.
Okay. When you're on a plane, in every single plane, there's a law that says that the stewardess has to tell you a few safety features before they take off. And one of the safety features that the stewardess says is that if something happens, if there's a crash, there's going to be, or it goes to a certain oxygen level, goes down to a certain level, there's going to be oxygen masks that come out from the roof. It says, and every single stewardess says the same exact thing. It's all law. They all read it. It's not like some chidush. They all say the same thing. They say, if you have a baby, and the baby's really, really cute, and it's your son, it's your daughter, it's whoever it is, it doesn't make a difference, and you love it more than your own life, still the law applies to you the same. Save yourself first. And then, save the baby. Even though the baby can't save itself. And it's waiting for you to save it. The reality is, first you have to save yourself. So this, Rabotai, is how you have to look at things. First, we do tshuva. First, we do tshuva. First, we start learning Torah. First, we start keeping Shabbat. First, we start keeping kosher. After you start doing what Hashem wants, and you start doing tshuva, people are going to watch you without your words. You don't need to talk. They're just going to see how your life changes, how it improves. If you're really doing tshuva, automatically you're becoming happier. So anyone that you see that does tshuva and he's not happy, that's because he's not doing tshuva. He's just learning stuff to tell people what to do. A lot of people learn things just to tell people what to do. That's not tshuva. Tshuva is you working on yourself. You're fixing yourself. You're fixing that neshama that's like half broken. That's like missing a wheel or two. We're angry too much. We're cheap too much. We're arrogant too much. We're a lot of different things. We have a lot of things we have to fix. Tshuva is fixing those midot. It's not just going to Beit Knesset. It's not just learning Parashat Shavua. It's not just going for Daf Yomi. It's fixing ourselves. It's becoming better people, better quality people. Once you become a better quality person and you're connected to the source of all sources, you're connected to Hashem Yitbarach, automatically you become happy. Once you become happy, you're contagious. Everyone wants what you have. They look at you like, what are you taking? I want that. Your mom, your dad, your brother, whoever it is, it could be a Nazi. He looks at you, he's like, what are you doing? Why? You're happy. Everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants to be happy. So how come people are not walking around to all the religious people and saying, I want to be like you? Because the reality is, they haven't done tshuva either. They're religious, but they haven't done tshuva. Because they're not happy yet. To be happy, you have to do real tshuva. Real tshuva means you have to fix yourself. You have to have full emunah. What's emunah, Rabotai? What's emunah? Is emunah saying Be'ezrat Hashem? No, that's not emunah. Is emunah saying Baruch Hashem? No, that's not emunah. It's a nice statement. What's emunah? Emunah is when everything is dark as the night. And you still know that Hashem is not only there, He's the night. When everything looks like it's the opposite of good. Everything looks horrible. Shidduch left, money's gone, parents hate you, kids hate you, wife hates you, husband hates you, even the dog is spitting on you. Everybody hates you, and you know this darkness, that's God. Why? He's talking to me. Hashem Yitbarach is talking to me. That's emunah. When we get there, that's when we're contagious. That's when everybody says, what are you taking? I want that. Why? Because whatever I'm doing with my millions, with my billions, with my whatever I have, it's not that. So that's the thing that if we do, we first worry about us, and we fix us, little by little, other people are going to start asking you. And when they ask you, you're going to have answers. Now, of course, it's not easy all the time if you're still living with your parents, if you're still living with somebody that's not religious, if you're already married and you're ready to do tshuva but she's not, or you're ready to do tshuva but he's not. So that's obviously a problem. But it's not impossible. It's not impossible. So first and foremost, Baruch Hashem, most people are able to afford $10 a day. Most people can afford $10 a day. We're not homeless. We're not... and if you can't, I'm sure somebody can give you $10 a day or $5 a day. With $5 to $10 a day, you could eat for the whole day. So even if everybody in the house wants to eat pork with cheese on it and some bacon on top just to make sure it's really chazir, you could eat a kosher meal at a kosher place for $10. Don't eat at home. Don't eat there. They want to eat taref, let them eat taref. You don't have to go on top of their head right now. Why? Because for them, if you start telling them, listen, stop eating pig because I'm doing tshuva, they don't even know what you're doing yet. Until they start seeing that your tshuva is serious and you haven't eaten with them for 6 months, and they start asking you questions, don't even say anything yet. Why? You're waiting for them to start seeing the effect of it. Until you become sure with what you're doing, telling them anything, they're not going to listen to you anyway. Now this applies only to the people that are really close to you. The people that are living with you. Now if it's a stranger right now, you go outside and you see one of your friends that's a mechalel Shabbat. You go tell him something now. Why? Because he's a stranger. People that are living with you are much more difficult to help them do tshuva. And the reason why is because they're always going to remember you before you did tshuva. They're never going to give you credit for doing tshuva. Your parents, your brothers, your sisters, they're always going to remember you from before. So them, they're the last option to help. Them, you pretty much have to pray for Hashem to help them. Because they're not going to listen to you right away. It's going to take time for them to listen to you. But the strangers in the world, somebody you don't know, someone from the Keilah, somebody from school, somebody from work, all these strangers, go to them first. Give them a CD, send them a shiur, send them a link. Do different things to get them to come to do tshuva. But as far as if you're living with people that are going against the Torah 100%, if you can move, obviously move. But assuming you don't have a choice, and you're, let's say, for example, you're in one of those circumstances where you don't have any money, you don't have a job, and you don't have any way to get out of this, and you live with your parents, then the reality is that all you have to do is ask your parents for $10 a day, or get a job that's going to make you $10 a day, and go eat kosher elsewhere. Shabbat, try to find a place to stay at to keep Shabbat. Don't stay at the house for keeping Shabbat. There's an application called Shabbat.com. Shabbat.com is an application where different people host different people for Shabbat. This is actually very good for people that are looking for zivug. A lot of people have actually gotten married as a result of going to different people's houses, their daughter, their sons, their so on. So this is a good idea for people that are single. You want to go to a Shomer Shabbat's house. It's definitely better than being alone or being with a bunch of people that don't keep Shabbat. So Shabbat, stay somewhere else. Holiday, stay somewhere else. And once people start seeing, the important people in your life start seeing that Hashem is important to you, if they love you, it'll start becoming important to them too. Maybe not to the extent that they're going to change their life automatically, but at least they'll start respecting you and respecting your desire. So they're not going to eat the pig right in front of you. They'll eat it behind your back. They're not going to watch the TV in front of you on Shabbat. They'll watch it when you leave. So even if they're against it, they're not going to do it in front of you. That's if they love you. If they hate you, you should move out anyway. But the point is that there is ways to go around it. It's not impossible. Just because the whole family is not doing tshuva doesn't mean we can't do tshuva. It just means that your time came now, their time, Be'ezrat Hashem, will come later. But there are always ways, creative ways to make it work. I can tell when I first started doing tshuva, I lived on a 35th floor in Manhattan. Now the reality is you can't be part of a community if you live on a 35th floor. Because to go up and down 35 stories on Shabbat or holidays is not happening. Number one, I was very sick. And number two, that's just not happening. Even if you're not sick, you're not going up and down 35 stories. So on Shabbat, it was one of two options. Either I was going to my parents' house in Staten Island and stay there for the whole Shabbat, stay there for the whole weekend, or I would just stay at home and not leave. That's my Shabbat, so I didn't go to Beit Knesset. But it wasn't fine. It was fine for me for almost 2 years. Until I wanted to be part of a community, so we moved out, we moved to Florida, and so on and so forth. But the point is that if you want to do Ritzon Hashem, you want to do the will of Hashem, you'll find a way. You'll find a way. Don't depend on other people. Next question. Yeah, go ahead. Question? No? You pointed at you, said you had a question.
Actually, I don't have a question. I just didn't want to be... I totally agree with the rabbi about the halacha of the woman covering the hair. Excuse me that I'm bringing it back again. I know everybody wants to leave. But I just don't want to be like Yov who kept quiet. I agree that a woman should cover fully her hair.
Okay.
I just want the rabbi to know that the Bukharin community is doing a tremendous movement in religion. And my parents deal with the Bukharin community. And telling the community that a woman should not cover her hair at all. If she doesn't want to cover it with a impactul or a kova, might do some shalom bait issues or like have have men have issues, dating certain girls, which I don't know if that's what we want.
Well, that's the thing. If we knew for sure that the wig that someone is getting is coming from a kosher source, if we knew it's coming from some Jew that's decided to donate our hair, and our two friends decided to join them, and the factory decided to make that into a wig, so we know for sure this wig has a problem as far as tzniut, but it's not a problem as far as avodah zarah, then you're right. The problem is we have no way to do that. We know, based on research that I did, based on research that Rabbi Yashiv did, Gedolei Ador from 15 years ago, based on the Gedolei Ador that actually looked into it, much bigger than I can ever be, if you're buying a wig, there's no way in the world for you to know it's not idolatry. Meaning, the majority of wigs are idol worship. So, it's better...
All men should divorce their wives because they want
No one's saying divorce wife, just don't wear a wig.
No, but the woman wants to wear it, or if she doesn't want it, so he should not get married to her because she doesn't want to wear it. I just want to understand the logic behind it.
Okay.
Like, I get it. It's not
Okay.
allowed. I
So
agree
it's not
with
allowed.
you.
Okay, so
What
now...
do you do?
Right. So if, let's say, for example, somebody has a shidduch.
Yeah.
Hold on, guys. If anyone wants to leave, you can leave quietly. Anyone wants to stay, can stay quietly. Okay. So this is a very serious question. There's two questions. Number one. First question is... Ready? First question is... Two very serious questions. First question is... We have one guy that's on shidduch. He's shidduch. And the woman comes from Chabad. Chabad is a very big promoter of wigs. There's two main mitzvot for Chabad. Mashiach is the Rebbe and wigs. That's the two big things from Chabad. Huh? Oh, tefillin. Chazak u'baruch. Three different things. Yeah, three different things. So it's three different things that they're big on. Tefillin, Rebbe is Mashiach, sometimes he's God, and the wigs. That's the three big things. I'm not saying Lashon Hara, it's reality.
Some.
No, majority. Well, anytime it's over 80%, it's considered.
The reality is Lashon Hara.
It's not like reality. It's not Lashon Hara. No, it's against God. They're doing something that's against God, saying things that are against God, whether it be wigs or being that the Rebbe is Mashiach. It's against God. So that's not Lashon Hara. That's ochacha. That's huh?
The Rebbe was very supportive of Peah.
He was very supportive of Peah according to what they say.
Rabbi Yashiv was supportive of Peah, only not the long one.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Not.
I was at Rabbi Tzaka said a month ago. Rabbi Tzaka said I asked him. I said, if a woman in New York, in America, wears a wig, I asked him, I have it on video. Should I bother her to take it off? He said, don't bother her. What he writes in the sefer, he said, this is a chumrah, but he said that Rav Moshe Feinstein, we learned Rav Moshe Feinstein, the Chametz Chaim's wife didn't cover the hair.
If he's saying color.
And then we got one second. Then he got to the whole thing with India. There's places that they say that from India. That meaning, if it's not from India, you're not sure, then maybe you can wear it. I have a customer who has an elephant in front of his room. Okay, every day he comes, he puts $1 by the elephant. That means I can't take money from this guy because it's safek 1% of that dollar is from this elephant. I mean,
No. That dollar is not from the elephant. The elephant is a simple statue. The hair itself is the idol. Is something that was offered to the dollar wasn't offered to the elephant. The hair was offered to the elephant.
The question is it called idol worship? What they're doing?
It's 100% idol worship.
There's a machloket over there. They say they rely on a fake. That's the argument.
I know what Rav Belsky is
They
saying.
rely on a
I know what Rav Belsky is saying.
They say they have what to rely. They're not. It's definitely not the idol.
So I read. Okay, so I read. I read the whole thing of what Rav Belsky said. Not just the conclusion. I read the whole thing. And Rav Belsky himself, in the beginning, the middle, and the end, says, I'm not even in a position to go against Rav Yashiv and what he says. This is simply my opinion. He's not even telling you to follow what he says. He just says it's my opinion. It's not halacha. He's not posek. He's not going against Rav. It's just simply what he thought of it. He says, Kvodo bimkomo. This is just my opinion, but go listen to Rav Yashiv. He's not saying listen to him. He's not saying go start wearing wigs. He's not saying everything is kosher, what everybody else is saying. It's the same thing with the Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe. He's saying, oh no, he preferred wigs over kisui rosh. That's not true at all. And the reason why you think that is because that's why Chabad says, oh, he preferred wigs over that. But that's not true, because I have letters from the Rebbe where he says he prefers the kisui rosh over the wig.
This
No.
is another topic.
Hold on. So now let's answer the question.
Yes, this
Let's
is
answer
another
the question. You have two questions.
So a male should
Two
have
questions.
look down on his wife wife because she's wearing a wig?
Okay,
Or
it's
should
two
he
questions. Two
divorce her
questions.
or not marry her to begin with?
First question is if you have a shidduch, and the woman is from Chabad or from other sect of Judaism, or she just in general, she wants to wear a wig. And you have heard, have listened, and you believe. You believe everything I just say. Second question is if you're married to her already. Now, if you're not married to her already, and you know that it's impossible for you to have any night of sleep with certainty that you don't have avodah zarah in your house. You know that the wig, it's not maybe. It's not maybe. It's avodah zarah. It's a reality. You can disagree with me as much as you want. Anyone can disagree with me. I saw it. I know it. You can do whatever you want. The point is, the market research is the market research. The customer is the customer. Now, the point is, Rabotai, if you have, even if it's not 99%, like I say, it's 1% chance. 1% chance that it's avodah zarah. If you have 1% yirat shamayim, you have 1% yirat shamayim, you're not going to want avodah zarah in your house. You're not going to want your avodah zarah in your house. That's as simple as it gets. You're not going to want your avodah zarah in your house. So now, if a woman that you haven't married is not only telling you, I'm going to bring what you believe is potentially avodah zarah into the house, but also against what you want. Meaning you're telling her, no, I don't want you to wear a wig. And she says, no, I am going to wear a wig. And if you don't let me wear a wig, I'm going to leave you. Then it's not a problem of avodah zarah. Then it's a problem of why you even with her in the first place. She doesn't want to listen to anything you say. You're not on the same page to begin with. Why are you going to get married? You're just going to get divorced in a few years.
Because she doesn't want to wear a wig doesn't mean she doesn't like him. That doesn't want to be with him.
If she wants to wear a wig, it's only because she wants other boyfriends.
No, that's not
That's
true.
only because she wants other husbands.
Rabbi Yosef, he's very strict, obviously, in not wearing wigs. He himself says that if a person is dating somebody and she wants to wear a wig, he should not marry her because of that reason. He said you should marry her, but slowly by slowly you should try to convince her and inspire her to wear impactul. But he didn't say that you shouldn't marry her because you want to wear a wig.
I'm not saying don't marry because of the wig. I'm saying you say no, she says yes.
Every girl about the wig for the same reason.
I'm not saying you say you're telling her no, and she says yes. That means that you guys are disagreeing on the foundation of Judaism. You're in two different pages. That's one. So that's if you're not married. Answer to the second question, which is if you're already married to her. If you're already married to her and she's wearing a wig, and you know for sure it came not only from India, it came from the idol worshiper himself, and she simply doesn't care. Doesn't care. She says, let it come from Buddha himself. I don't care. I want to put it on my head. I'm not listening. I want to wear the wig. Do you get a divorce? No, you don't get a divorce. Now, we're not suggesting people to get divorced.
Well, I was saying when you're dating, not when you're married.
I know what you said. If you're already married to her, you don't get a divorce, but you have to get her to do tshuva over time. Now, obviously, how to get her to do tshuva takes time. Different people, different ways. Some people, it's learning about yirat shamayim. Some people, it's learning about modesty. Some people, it's about learning different things. The reality is, Rabotai, is any single woman, any woman that has listened to the shulim that we have about wigs, about providing all the sources, all the facts, all the industry facts, all the halachic facts, all those things. I have a bunch of shulim about this topic. The women that have taken off their wigs, it didn't happen overnight. Some of them it took a month, some of them it took a week, some of them it took 2 years. But the point is, the women that took it off, at the end, after they finally took it, they all admitted the truth. The real reason of why they wore a wig in the first place is simply because they wanted attention from other men, which by default makes it not allowed.
I don't believe that.
You don't believe it? I'm lying to you?
Even if a woman...
Even I'm lying to you, I'll make a lie. I'll keep doing
What
it.
about being
woman-
attracted to her husband?
Yeah, a woman...
If a woman wears a hat or mikvah, she looks older than she is. She looks older. You know, a woman
in
20, 30 years old,
more self-confident.
married to
By the way, if a woman does not wear a wig...
One person at a time. I can't listen to everybody at the same time.
It works that both ways.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Rabbi, in general, women are more self-conscious about their beauty. Second of
Thank
all,
you.
Even if a woman,
I was born yesterday.
So even within the women, let's say they go to a woman party, they still want to wear a wig because they want the other women to look at them. Oh, this girl is pretty.
Okay, so hold on. So hold on. Okay, let's answer this next question. Rabotai. Okay. So now,
He's self-wig.
Rabotai. So, you want to answer the question? Ready? Okay. So now, as far as the joke, as far as the joke of the year of women using the excuse of I want to be attractive to my husband, the reason why it's the joke of the year is because no one said you shouldn't be attractive to your husband. Because when you're with your husband alone, you could show your hair. No one says you're not allowed to show your hair. In your house, show your hair. No one says don't show your hair. But the reality is that most of the day your husband's at work and you're not at work with him. You're somewhere else. So in reality, most people that see you are not your husband. You go to the supermarket with the wig. You go to the mall with the wig. You go to the store with the wig. Wait, so your husband's not there. So how come all the women that are wearing wigs don't only wear wigs next to their husband? How come they're wearing it next to Mustafa also, and Steve from the supermarket, and Wilbur, and Patrick? How come they wear it for them also? How come they're not wearing a hat for all those other people and only the wig for the husband? Because it's all a joke. The reality is any real woman that's a Isha Emet, it's a real Emet. She's looking for the truth and she'll stand up for the truth, even if she doesn't want to live it. Will tell you, there's only one reason I want to wear a wig. Why? To attract other men. That's it. There's no other reason. Women like attraction. That's a reality. Hashem created them that way. It says in Parashat Bereshit. It's not my chidush, Rabotai. Hashem says, you will depend on the man. For what? What depend on what? For money? There's plenty of women that are successful.
Not any man.
Huh?
And your man.
Yes.
Not any
Men in general. Why?
A man who gives his woman attention, she's not going to seek it anywhere else.
And that's why she's not going to want to wear a wig.
The nature of the woman. I'm not saying, Kvod Harav, you're right. And all the Rabbanim, Akdoshim, the Rishonim, the Achronim are right. A woman should not wear a wig. Should not. It's Isur. But the question is why. And if she does, well, how should a man react? I just don't want to cause bayot shalom bayit in the houses of these people who are really trying hard. Very hard.
Like I said, in the beginning of the shiur, I asked you a question. How much is God worth to you? How much is he worth to you? To some people, he's worth $1,000. To some people, he's worth $1 million. To some people, he's worth a simple wig. That's a reality. If you know that by wearing a wig, there's a 1% chance, 1%, not 99% like I'm saying, there's 1% chance that you are now officially a member of idolatry. You're benefiting from idol worship. In reality, it's 99%, if not 100%. But let's say it's 1%. 1% chance that it's idolatry. So there's a 1% chance you are officially benefiting from something that Hashem specifically says 12 times in the Torah, To'evat Hashem. It's disgusting to me. Disgusting. You are now to your Father in heaven that gives you everything, gives you your eyes, your ears, your tongue, your nose, your hair, your zivug, your kids. You kept them alive all these years, your wife, your husband, your business, everything you have. You are doing something that he says outright, it's disgusting to me. If you're willing to take that 1% chance, you have a serious problem. You have a serious crisis in your relationship, not between your husband and wife, between Hashem and you, because you're willing to do something that he says to you, it's disgusting to me. That means you don't know what he means. That means you don't know what it means to be disgusting to him. That means we have to do tshuva. Like I said, there's no such thing as from birth. There's no such thing as religious anymore. There's people that do tshuva and people that don't do tshuva. Now, as far as people that are wearing wigs, they want to continue wearing wigs, enjoy your wigs. I don't care. What, am I selling hats? What, am I in a hat business? Am I making some major money from you taking off your wigs? Wear your wigs. Enjoy your wigs. What the hell do I care? I'm just trying to help you. You want to violate Shabbat? Violate Shabbat. There's a consequence. That's all I'm telling you. There's a consequence for it. You don't want to believe it? Don't believe it. Do you think that Rabbi Belsky and the Lubavitcher Rebbe and any Rebbe and the local Rebbe and this Rebbe and that Rebbe are going to help you when Hashem says, oh, by the way, you're the idol worshiper that I've been waiting for 30 years. Come. I have a Gehenom suite right for you over here. You think they're going to help you? Oh, no, but this guy said it's allowed. He said it's allowed. He's also in Gehenom right next to you. He's in Gehenom right next to you. It's the same suite.
All right, we're mixing up two things. One thing we're mixing up is idol worshiping. The other thing is the woman attracted to her husband or not.
Now, As far
Moshe, if you know your wife for sure got hair from a non-idol worship,
That's for sure not allowed.
that's allowed.
Oh, I mean allowed, right.
Okay. That's not a problem. There's a machloket for
No,
Masi.
he's saying
different
it's still
argument.
halachically not allowed.
No, it's
You have
not
to-
halachically. There's an
no.
argument.
He said,
Hold on a second. Hold on.
It's not allowed because we didn't sneeze. You still have to cover your
That's an
hair.
argument of erva or tznius.
Yeah,
No,
so he-
hold on a
yeah,
second,
so
hold on a
he's saying
second.
He
also
was saying
that.
there's books.
So what's
He's
the
saying there's
support?
books.
Okay, would you like for me to answer, or you guys want to do the shiur? Okay, hold on. Actually, you know what? I have something for you guys. I think somebody asked me about wigs. Yeah, actually, I have something. Anybody know that I read Hebrew?
Yeah.
Okay. So, so here, I have now the machloket of wigs, no wigs, yes wigs, all this stuff. Like I told you, for over 2,000 years, it was based on tzniut. It was based on modesty. Even though the wigs in previous generation looked like brooms, they were not allowed because of modesty issues. 400 years ago, it became a debate. Meaning for 2,000 years, it was not allowed. 2,000 years, it was not allowed. 400 years ago, somebody said it's allowed to wear a wig. So meaning the whole issue of wigs started 400 years ago. It didn't start 2,000 years ago. Bathsheba didn't wear a wig. Sarai Menu didn't wear a wig. No one wore a wig until 400 years ago. Now this by itself should give you the conclusion.
Aren't there Gemaras about sheitos?
Yes, there is. Gemara Masechet Shabbat, Chazak u'Baruch. And they say, how did they wear sheitos back then? It was people that didn't have hair, and they wore it under a hat. Under a hat they wore it. They didn't just wear the sheitel by itself, they wore it under a hat. Why? Because they were missing hair, and it didn't look nice for them to have just a hat or just a mitpachet covering their hair, because you still could tell they're bald. So they put some wig, so it still fills up the mitpachet. That's how the original wig was. 400 years ago, he said, no, you don't need the mitpachet, you don't need the hat, just wear the wig by itself. Now, that's when the big debate started, which already should tell you that in reality, the wig is not allowed, because if it was allowed, Sarai Menu would wear a wig, Rivka would wear a wig, Rachel would wear a wig, Bathsheba would wear a wig, Chana would wear a wig, all the tzaddikim would wear a wig. But let's move on. Hold on a second, guys. Now, out of the last 2,000 years, there's been 127 poskim. 127 poskim. And recently there was another 10 added. So it's 137 poskim. But in reality, there's 127 poskim all the way from the days of the Gemara, Yonatan ben Uziel. Yonatan ben Uziel, if you look at the beginning of the Gemara, Masechet Megillah, first, I think it's the third or fourth page. It says Yonatan ben Uziel was the first one that started a Torah Be'al Peh. He started the oral Torah before Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Before him, he started the Pirush. The first commentary was Yonatan ben Uziel. Yonatan ben Uziel was the first one that says Peot not allowed. No wigs are allowed. In regards to modesty, not Avodah Zarah. Since then, 126 more poskim, all the way to Rav Ovadia, said it's not allowed. Rav Yashi, Rav Ovadia, and so on and so forth. Now, if you compare that list to the number of poskim that say it is allowed, the numbers can't compare. And the reason why is because if you're looking at the size of the poskim, from Yonatan ben Uziel to Rav Ovadia, the people on the other side can't compare, not just necessarily in stature, but also in regards to number. We're talking about more than 10 to 1. More than 10 to 1 say it's not allowed. Which means...
There are plenty of poskim today that hold that it's completely mutter, and they're relying
today,
on the earlier Rishonim.
Today is not comparison to Yonatan ben Uziel or the Arizal or any of them.
First, I don't know if the Arizal held that it's usher.
I'm telling you it is.
I don't know if that's true, because I also spoke to Rav, who quoted the Arizal. The whole thing starts from whether it's going on erva or tznius, right? That's where the whole thing starts from. Mm-hmm. If you're going erva, any covering is okay. If you're going tznius, then there's a Gemara, fourth parak of Ksubas, parak Madir, that says that it goes by Das Yehudis, right? That you go by what the most of the people are doing, and then you go according to that. If you go to Geula, you go to Eretz Yisrael, you see that most of the women there are wearing wigs, then I spoke to Rabbanim who spoke to poskim, then it's okay. So either way you go, now you're coming on a different topic of Avodah Zarah. That's a different topic. But if you're gonna go
As
from
far as
halacha.
tzniut is concerned, there's 127 poskim that say it's not allowed.
The argument that tznius they would have is in a girl who's not married would have to cover their hair also.
Huh?
That's the argument. Girls who are not married, it's based on tznius, would have to cover their hair also.
Yes, the Rambam speaks like that.
Exactly. That's why they bring erva as a stronger reasoning for it.
But the point, the 127 poskim are not saying about it. They're saying, as far as tzniut, you're not allowed to wear a wig. 127 poskim, exactly. I have the list.
Correct.
127 poskim. It's not a made-up number. I didn't just make it up on the way here. 127 poskim. You compare it to historically, not this generation. This generation you can't compare to 400 years ago, 500 years, 1,000 years ago. You can't compare people from our generation now, which is a generation of Yetomim. There's barely any Gdolei Ador left. There's barely any people that actually speak out about some big issues. And the reality is 90% of Am Yisrael don't keep Shabbat Bichlal. So you can't compare this generation to the generation of even 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300. You can't. So the Gdolei Adok, Vodam Bebkumam, of today are not like the ones from 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. They'll tell you themselves they're not. No posek is, if you compare the list, number-wise, of allowed versus not allowed, we're talking about a ratio of 10 to 1. Not allowed versus allowed. 10 to 1. Now, or more than 10 to 1. Now, the ones that say it's not allowed, they're not saying it's not allowed and... you know what, but if you do it, no big deal. Not saying, it's not allowed, but if you do it, it's okay. You can rely on something. There's a list of different things, different ma'amarim, of all of these chachamim, the Admor Misatmer, the Baba Sali, Rabbi Shmuel Levi Vosner, and so on. There's, I don't know, maybe 70 or 80 over here, each one of them of what they actually wrote. And you can read this, you can take this if you'd like. These are Gdolei Olam. These are Malachim. Malachim, learn with them. This is what they said. The stuff they say is much worse than my shiur about Genom. The stuff they said about wigs. You want to take that risk? Enjoy. Go have fun with it. What doesn't affect me. I'm patul. I told you. I'm not going to Genom for somebody else. I didn't tell them about it. I told you. You want to rely on somebody that says it's allowed? Enjoy yourself. You're taking a risk. I'm not willing to take that risk. So that's in regards to tzniut. Now, in regards to avodah zarah, it's not even a debate. And the reason why is because as great as they are in Torah, they didn't spend 16 years on Wall Street. I did. I know how to do research. You can't challenge that. I was on TV. I was on Bloomberg, on CNBC, on CNN. That's what I did for 20 years. You can't tell me any rabbi in the world knows more about market research than I do. I don't even need to know who they are. And they just don't. That's what I did for a living. It's like me telling you, I'm a better posek than you because I've been learning for 5 years. It's a joke. So it's not that they're not smarter than me. They just never spent that much time doing it. So I did the research. I'm telling you, the market of wigs only comes from India. That's it. There are, of course, small markets everywhere in Cambodia and this one and that one. But as far as the market is from India. You want to take that chance that there's a safek, maybe yes, maybe no. You're either a part of idol worship or part of not. That means there's a different shiur for you. The shiur is not about wigs. The shiur is about Yirat Shamayim. The shiur should be about Yirat Shamayim, not wigs. Why? Because if anyone that has 1% of Yirat Shamayim, 1% of fear of Hashem, 1% they're scared that Hashem may punish them. 1% they're afraid that Hashem may make them sick. 1% they're afraid Hashem may make their kid die. 1% they're afraid that Hashem may take all their money. 1% they're afraid that Hashem is going to make them die alone and never have anybody in their life. 1% they're afraid the IRS is going to audit them and torture them for 10 years. 1% they're afraid they're going to go to Gehenom and never leave. 1%. They're not going to take a chance. They're not going to take a chance. Why? For 1% chance. Forget 99%. I gave you 99% reasons to be scared. You're still not scared? The shiur should have been completely different. Should have been about Yirat Shamayim. We need to understand who Hashem is, Bichlal. And that's the reality. So that's what we're missing today. We have no idea what we're dealing with. We think that God is our friend. He's our buddy. He's our roommate. We can play with him. We can rely on this local rabbi that translated things in his own different way. And like he's going to help you in Gan Eden. He's going to help you in Shamayim. Yeah, he's going to, yeah, I told him. Yeah, it's okay. He's going to help you when you're up there. He doesn't even know you. And that's the reality. You want to rely on him? Rely on him. That's your chance. Me? I went through hell. I went through hell. I know what it looks like here and there, both. The part I'm telling you and the part I'm not telling you. I know what it looks like. Me? I'm not taking a chance. I'm not taking a chance not telling you, and I'm not taking a chance doing it myself. Why? I know what it looks like. Rabbi Yisrael Misalant, the Baal Musar, one that started the Musar movement. He had a kollel, he had yeshiva. Every one of his students was a bigger angel than the other. One day he brings a giant fish to the yeshiva. Giant fish with a big giant knife. He puts it on his table. Everybody stops. They see, what is he doing? What's the Rav doing? Why does he have such a big fish? He puts it on the table and chops it in half. Everybody's looking. They have no idea. What is he going to make a sushi? Why is the Kvod Rav cutting a fish in half? Like, what's the pshat? He sees everybody, chops it again. People again are like, maybe he's making us 2 sushis. Chops it again. Now everybody's like, okay, something's happening here. He's not making salad. And after the quiet stops, he says to them, Rabotai, you see this? This is what's going to happen to you if you don't learn Torah and do tshuva. He's telling this not to people that are balebatim, that are like half tshuva, half yes, half no, maybe yes, maybe no, maybe they keep Shabbat, maybe no, maybe they learn once a week, maybe 6 times a week. Well, he's not talking to that. He's talking to anashim that are considered angels. And he's telling them, if you don't do tshuva, this is going to be your end. That's what Hashem's going to do with you. You think he was joking? If you think he's exaggerating, then you don't know what it means to be a Jew. This, I'm not taking the risk. You want to take the risk with your life? Enjoy. At the very least, I told you. At the very least, you can't go up to Shamayim and you can't say, oh, I didn't hear. Why? Because this parasha says, Vayishma Yitro. Yitro heard, you heard also. Why? There was a shiur by Yitro. Yeah.
Why don't you just tell him about the Lubavitcher Rebbe? His wife, his mother, they never...
Oh, yes, that's also true. That's also true.
They represent the Ashkenazi world.
Well, that's the one thing that also is the big kept secret in Chabad. God bless them. Chabad does a lot of good things. They're everywhere like Starbucks. They help a lot of people do tefillin. But one thing that they're escaping from in regards to the wig issue is that they're telling you that the only opinion that the Lubavitcher Rebbe had is predominantly about wigs. And it's not true. And the best proof that I provided so far is the fact that I showed pictures. It's not Lashon Hara, it's not a dimayon, it's not my imagination. I actually showed pictures. I have more than a dozen pictures that I have of both his mom, the Lubavitcher Rebbe's mom, and his wife. Both of them, in every single picture, are wearing a hat. In every single picture are wearing a hat or kisurosh, meaning his own wife, his biggest talmidah, his own mom, his biggest teacher. As far as women in his life, both of them are not holding by him. They're not holding by the wig thing. Why? Because they held by what the Torah says. What Torah say? Wear mitpachat, wear a hat. It doesn't say wear a wig. It doesn't say it. And even his own family knew it. What he tells his Talmidim or whatever, he wrote in a few letters, different story. In reality, the people closer to you know the truth. Your wife knows exactly what you really are. Your husband knows exactly what you really are. Why? He knows what's happening behind closed doors. You could look like a tzaddik in Bet Knesset with talit and everything else, but she knows you're a thief. She knows you're a liar. Why? She knows where everything comes from. You could pretend all you want, but she knows. His wife knew exactly what he believed. That's why she followed it. She put a mitpachat on. She put a hat on. You want to hold by Lubavitcher Rebbe? At least hold by what she did. Look at what his wife did. And that's it. So the point is, if she's not willing to take a risk, if the Lubavitcher Rebbe's wife and mom are not willing to take a risk, why are you? Why is your wife? Now, I'm not saying go start filing gets every day and start divorcing your wives, but at the very least, the conclusion of this shiur should mean every single one of us needs to do shuvah for something. Some people for wigs, some people for yirat shamayim, some people for limud Torah, but don't start relying on local rabbis. I don't care who they are, even me. Go double check everything. Go double check everything. And until you know for sure, this is the emet that I'm willing to testify for, that it doesn't matter what they're going to tell me in Shamayim, I'm going to hold to it. Even if they tell me you're going to get on for it, right? I'm going. Until you can testify, this is the emet, don't do it. That's why, Rabotai, Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel, they're both right. They're both right. Even though we hold by Bet Hillel, it says when Mashiach comes, we hold by Bet Shammai. Why? They're both right. Why? Because both of them believe that what they're doing is 100% emet. Not because it was their belief in their heart, but really because they fought for the emet and they reached their emet. Us, we're just relying on some local guy. We watched a few YouTube videos of me or somebody else, and we can't do that. You have to look for it. Fight for the emet. Fight for being emet. Don't just say, oh, this guy said it's okay, so it's okay. I'm willing to risk going against the 127 poskim that say it's not allowed. I'm willing to risk it. I'm going to go fight them in Shamayim. Because that's who's going to show up to the Bedin. 127 poskim are going to say, hey, listen, how come you went against me? No, what are you going to say? Oh, the rabbi told me. Who? Rabbi Smith. Who is he? Oh, yeah, you know, he graduated from Yeshiva University with 3.8 GPA. Who are you talking? That's who you decided to bet your olam haba on some guy with a 3.8 GPA? That's against the Arizal? Against Rav Ovadia? Okay, Chazaku Baruch. Beseder Rabotai, I think you got the point. Bezat Hashem, we'll have more shiurs tomorrow. We have 2 shiurs, one in Staten Island at 7:30 and one in Brooklyn right after, maybe around 10. Completely different. Bezat Hashem, Tizkuli Mitzvot, Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen ve'amen.